George Takei, William Shatner, Danny Glover.
Okay.
Fuck one, marry one, kill one.
All right. Welcome to another episode of Tales from the Void podcast. I bring you your glorious hosts.
I'm Joel.
I'm Josh.
I'm Mike.
And I'm Jeff.
Jeff, welcome.
Thank you, sir. Thanks for having me.
All right. Ready to go?
Ready to go.
Let's rock and roll.
Why are these all stuck together?
On today's episode, we're talking The Last of Us. The Last of Us would probably be Josh. I'm pretty sure.
I'm gone in like the first 4 seconds.
Yeah.
Giving me way too much credit.
I don't even know if I want to survive.
I'm going to blend in with the zombies, so you guys are screwed.
Yeah, all you got to do is wear their innards, right? I mean, it's a whole...
Fair.
Wait, this was not Walking Dead podcast. That's a different one. But before we get into that...
Yeah, we're not Chris Hardwick. Come on.
Yeah, the Talking Dead. Before we get into that, we have some questions for you, Jeff.
Go ahead.
First of all, welcome.
Thank you, sir.
I know I already said that.
Just to clarify, in case people stop paying attention.
I'm welcoming you a second time. Does anyone have any questions for Jeff? Round...
No, I was leaving them on you this time.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Jeff, if no one knows who Jeff is, first of all, you lead a stupid fucking life. If you do know Jeff, he has some interesting stories I'm sure he's willing to share.
Wait. Jeff leads a stupid life, or we lead a stupid life?
Anyone who doesn't know Jeff.
Okay.
Yeah, I caught on to that.
Yeah.
I
Okay.
got you.
Yeah.
I caught on to it too, but I wanted to make sure.
I was getting ready to walk out.
Yeah.
Jeez, oh, Pete's.
No. Everyone needs at least a dash of Jeff in their lives.
I agree.
You're currently employed and manage a game shop, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay, cool. So a couple of really, really interesting questions. First of all, has anyone used your lobby as a bathroom before?
Not my lobby, not my store, but nearby stores. It's happened several times. Yes.
That's unbelievable.
Yes.
It's like kids who can't hold it, but they're so excited to get Call of Duty 4, and they just wet the rug.
Just go
They
in the back
shit.
of the store. Oh,
Yeah.
it's happened. It happened to the Woodhaven store.
Oh, wow.
Somebody had to rip up a piece of carpeting.
It's really bad if you get a spot and it's like in the middle of the floor. Now, what are you gonna do? Like during the day, do you cordon the area off?
Luckily, we don't have like full carpet through. Well, it's carpeted through the store, but they're carpet squares.
Oh,
so
brilliant.
you just pull up that carpet square and you replace it with one from somewhere less conspicuous, like behind the cash wrap.
Oh man, who cares about those people, right?
Yeah, who cares where we're standing?
Cash wrap. Sean, you had didn't someone literally shit?
Yeah, in my Delaware store, this family came in to sell their gold, and the mom turns around, walks back, comes back forward, and goes, "Do you have paper towel?" I was like, "Of course." I thought maybe her kid spilled juice or something.
Technically.
Yeah, technically. Fast forward, I'm kind of curious about this. I play through the tape. The kid had shit and I'm sorry, I didn't play through the tape, but we had to take pictures of the customer. And I was looking through the pictures, and there was a turd off to her left where the kid was squatting.
Oh, it's just so perfect.
So if I was told correctly, the owner of the business hung that picture in his back room.
He probably did.
I was told he hung it in the back room at the home store.
He's got a weird thing about feces.
He loves
Either
feces.
he collects it or likes it. I don't know.
For love of feces, please email
By the way,
joshbasin@outlook.com.
I know this sounds weird, but I also had I know we brought this up to ask you, but
The Eastern Shore is just full of people who love to shit.
yeah, I
pigs.
just
Is this where you learned that it was okay to go in public?
Yeah.
Everybody poops.
My store in Salisbury had a sand floor, and it was supposed to look tropical, like a tropical thing. And the floor was all sand because we're right next to Ocean City. Anyway, so this little girl comes in with her mom. The mom comes in with the little girl, not like the little girl drove there or whatever. But anyway, the mom comes in with the little girl, and she just squats and pees in the middle of the sand floor. And I just went and shoveled it out like cat litter. Just shoveled it out. So, yeah. People, hold your piss. Hold your peace. Anyway, so that was one question. Thank you for answering that nasty question. What was your best customer experience?
I don't know about customer experience, but I have made several great friends through my time at GameStop, guys that have been to my wedding, guys I talk with and consider some of my best friends out there. So Josh,
I was there.
through employee. But yeah, I've had many customers I've met over the years that have become great people kids I've watched grow up, become teenagers and playing video games and eventually employed. But yeah, employees that I consider, like I said, customers I consider great friends that I talk to on a daily or if not weekly basis. So
That's really cool.
Jeff bullied me into pre-ordering like 10 games. I go in and I'm like, can I get Arkham Origin? He's like he hits the keys and then he just looks at me like, are you done? I'm like, I need this. And then I went through like 4 games before he's like, okay, good.
He did the whole "dude, where's my car" routine, where he's like, and then
Yeah.
and then you just keep pre-ordering stuff.
I don't think I've spent so much on pre-orders before.
Man,
On that note, from my first wedding, I had a couple female entertainers at the bachelor party. And come to find out that one of them lived right near the store I was working at the time out in the Westland Mall. So she decided to come visit me at work the day after.
Unbelievable.
And I may have conned her into reserving a couple games and signing up for our discount card.
Nice.
which I love, by the way. I use that thing to open locked doors. It is like the most rigid.
It's a great tool.
It's the most
When I was
rigid
telling
card.
you about those keys that open any door in this place, it's a GameStop card.
There you go.
Yeah, Game Shop.
Shop.
It's Game Shop,
That's what I
everyone.
said.
Don't get it wrong. What was your worst customer experience? Or
I
one
guess
of your
a
worst?
couple of them. I've actually been challenged to several fights over my years at GameStop.
I was just gonna
Josh
say-
was there for one of them.
I was.
I'm not going to go into that story though.
You were
There's one
challenged
better.
to a physical altercation.
Oh yeah, there were guys that threatened to fight me because I wouldn't return their games or I wouldn't let them open a product in the store to look at it, and they just snapped.
Hey man, the
seems like a
snap case
ridiculous-
of Crash Bandicoot needs to go back now.
That's what's ridiculous. It's just a return. Jesus.
I mean, guys, and even the guy in particular that jumps out. This is probably about 6-7 years ago now. Guy came in and bought a used PlayStation 2, supposedly for his daughter. He kept coming back. One day in particular, he came back 3 or 4 times that day to return it, swearing up and down it didn't work. So I did what I thought was great for the customer. I took one, opened it up, tested it out on our TV there, and it worked just fine. So as I'm boxing it back up, he tells me, let me handle it. You've only got one arm, and you're probably going to drop it and break it, which is probably why these other ones don't work.
Oh my God.
No way.
And you didn't challenge him to a physical
So at that point, I'm just like, I let it go. And I box it up and ring his transaction through, and I send him on his way. Have a nice day,
Classy.
Go in the back room, steam off, a little bit, walk back out. He calls back like a half hour later, just cussing and swearing at me. This one doesn't work either. And he's coming back up. So at this point, I tested the system for the guy. There's something wrong with the guy.
Something wrong with the man.
I'm done with him.
Yeah.
So he comes back in, and I'm just like, dude, I can't help you. We've tried several different systems. Doesn't look like we're going to be able to make things work for you today. I'm going to go ahead and give you your money back. Feel free to shop elsewhere, but you're no longer permitted to shop here.
Damn, Jeff
Nice.
closes the door.
Being polite. And he got loud. He told me that, he wants a system for his daughter. I'm going to give him another system. And I'm like, look, we've tried. It's not working. You keep cussing and swearing. I'm done with your business. I don't want your business anymore. You're no longer permitted to shop here. So he goes on a tirade, tells me he's going to, be there at close and, we're going to have it out. And I was like, okay, I'll get out here about 9:30 tonight.
What a jerk.
So
Jeff tells him exactly when he gets off of work.
I'm probably not the greatest thing to say, but
No.
Right.
I've never been one to back down. So of course he leaves. He doesn't come back. So a couple months later, maybe a couple years later, I don't remember. I'm working in the back room, and I walk up, and Holly, my current wife, who was working for me at the time, is ringing a customer up. And I walk up to the counter, and you just get that feeling. There's something wrong with this person.
Yep.
You don't know what it is. You can't remember. You just get a bad vibe. So I'm just like, I'm going to stay away.
Yep.
So she rings him up, and he comes up to me, and he's like, "Hey, guy, what's going on?" And the
He
minute
called you
he
guy?
started, I don't know. That's
I was gonna say
I don't
that's-
remember exactly what he said, but he comes up
Them
Mike
are
loves
fighting
being
words.
called guy.
and he acknowledges me. And the minute he did it, and I made eye contact with the guy, I knew who it was, and it was that guy.
No.
So I'm like, okay. So he's like, I just want to apologize. The last time I was in here, I was going through some rough times. I acted a little inappropriately. And I was like, that's cool. I appreciate it. He's like, well, I want to shake your hand. I was like, no, sir, it's okay. I was like, I accept your apology,
Right.
but you said some awful hurtful things that day.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to shake your hand, And he looks at me and he snaps. And he's like, fuck you, man.
Damn.
He's like, I knew you were an asshole.
Damn.
And I was like, and sir, that's why I'm not going to shake your hand. Please leave the store or I'm going to call the police.
Yeah, that's a real dirty, underhanded thing, though.
Oh,
That's how you know the
man.
apology wasn't genuine.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly. You just knew he was,
He wasn't
Yeah.
remorseful for anything he said. He
Yeah.
was ready to go again, dude. That's crazy.
Yeah, that's one of the more memorable customers over the years.
That's pretty
Dang.
awesome. So lastly,
Yes, sir.
for me at least, if you could hear only one song for the rest of your life and never grow tired of it, what song would that be?
That's impossible.
Sweet Child of Mine by Guns N' Roses.
How is it impossible? The man just
Impossible.
answered the question. That is, maybe it's impossible for some to pick one singular song.
Yeah.
I've listened to that song since my teenage years when I had it on CD, and over the years, it's meant different things to me, from different girls I had a crush on to my
Yep.
wife, now to my daughter. The
Oh,
song
yeah.
has just grown over the years, and it's my favorite song of all time, hands down.
That's
Nice.
freaking awesome.
Nice.
Thanks, Jeff.
Good pick.
Anybody else?
Thank you.
I don't think so.
Josh, you look like you have a question for
He
Jeff.
does.
I do?
Yeah, you got this real inquisitive look in your eye. Do you not have a question for Jeff?
No, I seriously don't.
Okay.
I got one.
Okay.
Fire
Barbara
away.
Streisand, Oprah Winfrey, Barbara Walters. Fuck one, marry one, kill one.
Barbara Walters.
He's thinking about it, ladies.
What
and
were the names
gentlemen.
again?
Barbara Streisand, Oprah Winfrey, Barbara Walters.
Could you give
Oh,
him?
man, there's
you-
a
Yeah,
no win.
I was-
That's a
there's
no
no-
win
Oh,
scenario.
I'm going to marry Barbara Streisand
Okay.
because she's a singer, and I would love to have a woman who would sing to me every single day.
Nailed it.
That,
Schnoz on that.
You
What
got
I would kill Barbara Walters. She's just too old.
There you go.
Isn't
And
she
when
already dead?
Oprah got thin, I'd fuck her, yeah.
Oh yeah, like the
Dang.
80s, late 80s, early 90s Oprah. I'd drill the shit out of that.
You know what's hilarious? This is that no-win scenario for me. It's Kobayashi Maru. I have no answer to this other than to change the players of the game. So on to The Last of Us here. If we just throw this out there, the game could have been called The Road by all rights. That's a masterpiece I've recently read. I did see the movie first, but it's written by Cormac McCarthy. I don't know if you guys have had the pleasure of either watching the film or reading the book, but it's got that same feel, like a father figure and a child figure trying to make it through this dystopian world. So they share the same umbrella. It's a dystopian, end of everything we know type of a story. The world isn't the same anymore in The Last of Us, and the characters are in constant flux, and their very survival is dependent on that fact. The focus of the game morphs entirely as time passes. The cause or reason of this grim world our characters share evaporates after a time and becomes more focused on the human element. It seems as if the why doesn't matter much anymore. Self-preservation dictates the day. So we have our main characters going through this dystopian world. What does it look like to you, Josh? Does it look like there's hope? Of course there's hope.
very slim
I
hope.
just answered for Josh just now.
I was gonna ask actually before the game came out. What because I don't remember when you guys got it. Am I the only one that actually got it at launch?
Yeah, I got it months
Like
later.
the PS3 version. Did you guys get it because I hyped it or because other
You
people?
literally gave it to me, and you
Well,
told
you
me,
yeah,
"Here,
I
play
did.
this
I
game."
gave it to you for a birthday present. That's true.
Yeah, so
I got it at launch, but I don't think I played it till a couple months later. I bought it due to my love of the Uncharted series. And it was made by
Naughty
those,
Naughty Dog.
made by the same developer, Naughty Dog. And just watching the trailers I saw at our manager conference and stuff, I instantly fell in love with. I thought I would fall in love with the game.
Those E3 trailers were amazing.
So right off the bat, because of those trailers, and you didn't ruin anything for me, Josh didn't tell me really a whole lot. It kind of like threw me in the fire. I did assume that it was his daughter through the entire game. I had no idea what actually happens in those opening scenes.
Good thing they tell you almost instantly.
You know, yeah, there was kind of maybe something I was expecting a little bit more rather than just they expect Ellie to be, immune and she's going to help with the cure, because that was the really big obvious thing, because they're always kind of like, there is something there, but we're not saying what. So that was the obvious thing to be like,
Yeah.
oh, okay, she's obviously got the cure. She's like the one.
Like, it couldn't have been an adventure all about, this, what I assumed, again, was a father and his daughter trying to make it through
Yeah.
the burned out world that they were in.
Not playing it till months later. I didn't have it ruined. I knew she wasn't the daughter. But I knew he was charged with escorting her out of town and across the country. And like Josh said, you kind of assumed she had to be a cure or something like that. But I didn't really know until I started playing the game.
That she had actually been quote unquote infected,
yeah.
and yet had beaten that. So that's what. Go ahead. Sorry.
Well, I was gonna jump to the game's beginning then.
Yeah.
So let's talk about Joel actually being a father.
Yeah.
Joel did have a daughter. Let's talk about that opening.
That was pretty powerful.
One of the most emotional experiences in any game I've ever played with that opening 20 minutes. Yes.
Oh man.
And it's been said, or I've had it told to me, that it's a device that's used in some stories to draw an audience in. I'd never seen it done like that before.
No.
In fact, because I had assumed that the girl Ellie was actually his daughter, I had no idea who was, what was about to happen. And plus, yeah, killing a child is going to instantly buy you into Joel, I think.
Yeah.
In a way.
It doesn't happen in media very often.
No.
I've read of a lot of Stephen King in Cujo. The boy dies. In the movie, he doesn't.
Right.
I mean,
Yeah.
they don't kill kids in media very often.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
I didn't know that either.
Yeah, and they show they don't show anything like that. So when it happened, it was so, in the way it happened, it was so strong. And her fear while she was laying there in his arms was palatable.
Yeah.
It was thick,
Yeah.
Strong moment. Instantly drew me into the game.
Yeah, there's this brief little moment with watching that, and I've playing through it like currently, anticipating doing this podcast. It was my 4th playthrough, and I've even watched the scene even on its own because I've watched like the documentary a couple of times, and they play that scene in it, and so I've seen it multiple times. I cry every single time, but there's this part that kind of starts to really trigger it, and that like when Sarah gets shot and Joel goes down and he grabs her and he's holding her, he does this brief look over to his brother Tommy who's there. That just, he has this look on his face. It's just kind of like, what do I do? Like,
Yeah.
what do I do?
The helplessness.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, aside, and this probably happens to me a lot. When I see something that powerful, I'm instantly moved into the deepest parts of my emotion. And then when I play through again, so the second time I played through with the Game of the Year or whatever, what was it? Special edition?
You remastered, yeah.
The remastered.
With Joanna, right?
Yeah, yep. And we started it from the beginning. It didn't have the same impact. However, I got to see, like you said, you start noticing little nuances. I did notice a few different nuances, that they were given the shots that rang out, and they were given this opportunity to try to figure out what to do, and he just seemed so frazzled. Of course, there was nothing to do, and that panic and that helplessness, that was crazy. That'll always speak to something deep inside, and I think for sure. So, and Tommy, I didn't even know after that scene blanks out and suddenly you're in this, you're in the game world at that point, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. She, is essentially dying in his arms. You get like credits, and then
And
you
you're
essentially
in.
get like the wrap up video, just kind of like, okay, here's what's actually happening. Here's what's infecting the humans. There are fireflies. They kind of slightly intro them, and then you cut to 20 years later.
It's the music too. So after that moment, when that moment cuts out, you're left like with this somber. It's like really hardcore in that moment. You're left with that somber music that also draws you in, right?
Yeah. Like Josh said, I've done it. He's done it multiple times. I just played through a 3rd time, and it draws you to tears. The first time playing through it, Holly watched it with me, and she was pregnant at the time. And she knew what was coming. She had to walk out of the room. I mean, she could feel it. It's just done that well. It pulls your emotions.
Yeah, and not very much does that. So even especially a video game, which in this one, you have this like choose your own adventure style, even though it's linear. Like, how are you going to make these kills?
Yeah.
How do you hunt clickers or get them to come to you so you can take them out? You have all that. That's fine. But what game drew you in like that? There isn't one.
No, nothing before this has drawn me in emotionally like that. Not,
Yeah.
That
Yeah.
jumps out at me.
I've never had. I mean, I have like, I have favorite games. Like going back to like Super Metroid and things like that were just a blast to play.
Literally.
I've
blast.
never, I've never had like such a strong personal connection to playing through a game before, and with its characters and its narrative, and even the gameplay that, we know people that complained about it. They don't like it.
I'm one.
It was fine to me.
Well, and the thing that got me in the beginning was, so I didn't have a kid at the time and or any of that. So, but it was the humanity of it. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
You don't want to watch something like that, but having it thrown in your face in this setting, you're in. So now when the game starts, you're like, all right, what kind of person am I when they bring Joel back? So the thing that I wanted to ask you guys is, when you got back to being Joel and he's having conversations with Tess, who's another main character, who, by the way, does kind of boss Joel around. Did you
Yeah, I
experience-
mean, Tess is, at first you're introduced to her and you find out through playing they're like partners. They live together, they work together, they're smugglers. And at first, like my first playthrough, it's you probably played what's the first hour and a half as like an intro. Once and it introduces you to the gameplay and the stealth aspect of it and everything. And she's just constantly like bossing. She's bossing
So
around,
bossy.
and I did not like her character the first time through. And she was just very domineering.
Now, when you played it on subsequent playthroughs, how did you take her?
Yeah, I mean, second and third time particularly, I really sat down knowing we were going to do this, and I really wanted to think through the characters and go through the game differently. Like, I went through the opening sequence and I explored their house from top to bottom. In walking through, when you first take a Joel and you're getting escorted through their town they live in, I really went and looked at the nook and cranny, and I paid attention to the conversations with the side characters. And it really seemed to me like Tess was in charge. She was almost like Joel was just lost, and it seemed to me like she was the character who maybe brought him out of it. Mm-hmm. She gave him that reason for living, and he made a couple comments later. I'm sure we'll talk about it, but later, like when to Ellie, like that Tess was very important to him, and you could tell that she meant a lot to him, and I think she pulled him out. She gave him the reason to live, and he latched onto her.
Yeah, that's exactly what the point that I was going to hit on is like there's another line when he's talking to Ellie and he tells her that like no matter what you have to keep trying finding something to fight for, and that was probably a big part of it for him, is just kind of like after he lost everything, she might have given him that reason to carry on.
Now, Sean, we know that you
Played it vigorously.
We know that you
multiple
that you witnessed the story. I would say this as an outsider looking in. I mean, you didn't really delve into the gameplay aspect, but you did get the cinematics. Did it draw you in the beginning as a story? Did
Of
it bring you
course.
into the fold?
And that's why I decided to watch it instead of play it, was because I was so wrapped up in the story. I didn't want to not know how it went, and I didn't want to hear about it from other people. So thankfully there was people that had played it and posted it, so I got to watch the gameplay as well as watch the story unravel. And I don't think I would have finished it anyway had I kept going. So
Yeah.
I'm glad I did it the way I did.
Well, sometimes that happens with games, and we mentioned that there's a subreddit called Games the Movie that you brought up the other time as well.
Mm-hmm.
That there are games where the gameplay is not it's just not going to work for everybody. You know what I'm saying? So it's cool to at least be able to.
On that string, Spec Ops: The Line is that way. The story itself is absolutely amazing, but the gameplay is so damn repetitive. You don't want to finish it,
Right.
but you should.
Right.
So that thing, that subreddit lets you watch it.
Sure. It's nice to be able to jump in, like I said.
Did you, at least going back to the opening and everything, did it impact you? Did you cry?
Of course I did.
Okay.
A child being shot in real life or in a game is still going to be this, emotionally impactful.
Just making sure you're still human.
Josh just wants to know if you cried.
Of course I did.
Did you cry?
We all did.
Like a baby.
Yeah, so going back to conversations that Joel had with Tess, Joel does say something very key to me, which makes me kind of wonder about his character. And I did not delve in outside of the game, so I have no idea what the backstory is. He does say to Tess something to the effect of having done some dark things, like to survive. So, he may have been a smuggler or whatever else, whatever they did before Ellie came and became a factor in their lives. What sort of dark shit did they get into? I mean, really?
I don't know. He kind of says that as like, almost as an excuse. Like she says we're shitty people, Joel, and he says we're survivors.
Yeah, like he's making an excuse for having survived. What did you do?
You go into that world. I mean, we don't know what it's like. Holly jokes around that one of her big fears is the end of the world, the apocalypse. Are we going to be ready? I mean, we're not, she doesn't want to be a prepper or anything like that. But there's her big fear. She doesn't like watching zombie movies. She doesn't like watching end of the world stuff because her fear is shit's going to happen and we're not going to be ready.
And it doesn't button up nicely all the time.
We don't use guns. We don't know. If somebody gave me a gun, I wouldn't know what to do with it.
Yeah.
In that world where you don't have police, you have to fight to survive.
Of course.
And particularly before they had the government set up and things like that. I don't know that I could survive in that world. I would like to think that I would do what it takes to protect myself, my wife, and my children. But
realistically,
I'm soft. You know what I mean? It's a completely different world, and you have to do ugly things to survive. Because if you don't, somebody's going to do ugly things to you.
And I look at Joel, and I look at maybe his previous life. I see he has a nice home. He has, a pretty nice cell phone. I looked at his TV. They're upstairs. The home is like this is like you were saying, walking around and getting the nuances of your setting. When you're the daughter and you get to like walk around the house kind of and just kind of look around.
Yeah.
He looked like just an average Joel, if you will.
Yeah.
He's just a normal dude, So he was driven to do these dark things just to keep alive. And again, at that point, I didn't know his brother was still alive, so I had no idea that they, you don't even find that out.
You don't find that until later, yeah. But yeah, Joel looking. I played through the game the second and third time through. I picked up the strategy guide and played through it because there's so many hidden dialogue points that you literally like points that conversations you could have with Ellie and other characters that give more of their backstory.
I know I missed
that if you don't walk into a certain corner of the map, you'll just completely miss.
Right.
And it fills you in a little bit like Joel. He was a construction worker.
Boom.
So that he was an average Joe. You know what I mean?
Without even knowing that, he kind of looked like a construction worker. He's got the plaid shirt and the jeans and the tucked in.
That's what I assumed of him.
Yeah, like he's a carpenter or something. Yeah, his brother even kind of, I think, said something to that effect. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't remember. I just, like I said, just reading it and found out. But yeah, he's just an average guy.
Now, you can pick up on that in the beginning because as soon as in the opening cinematic, as soon as he walks in the door, he's talking about doing work for the contractor.
Oh yeah, he's on the phone arguing with somebody or something.
With Tommy.
Right? Oh, with Tommy.
Yeah.
And to add to your point, I mean, there were certain points in the game where I was just trying to get through, and the reason. And we can talk about gameplay as well, or now or later or whatever. But there were certain points in the game where, I felt like it was contrived darkness. Like it didn't have to be that dark. So I had to figure out how to get from point A to point B without dying, and I died probably in and around 150 times. I mean, in that very beginning, where the building is kind of tilted, it's like the mall or something. You're trying to get through. It's the very first dark scene.
It was in the hotel.
In the hotel.
Yeah.
And I'm just trying to get through from one side to the other, and I knew exactly where at least I thought I knew exactly where all the enemies were.
Right.
You know how you do mapping? Sometimes you run straight through to like see like, okay, there's a guy over here, there's a guy over here, and then you get taken out. But at least you know now what you didn't know before. So then just trying to develop a strategy to get through some of those places. I probably missed dialogue points, hidden Easter eggs, all kinds of shit, because there were certain points in the game where the gameplay was kind of holding me back from fully experiencing that. But again, that might just be me as a player, you know?
Well, some of the points where you almost had to stand there and like let Ellie wander the map, and she would go up to a spot and start looking at it, and then if you walked up to her, you'd get a triangle like above her head, and it would create a dialogue point. So if you weren't waiting and you rushed through that point, she's gonna follow you.
Yeah, I did that all the time.
And it was really weird. But there were some quite, I remember one that jumps out at me is you're walking and you see a supermodel. And Ellie's like, I thought you guys had food in your time. And Joel made a joke, yeah, but some people chose not to eat it.
Oh, that's hilarious.
So making fun of this, supermodel who's, in their time, in her time period, it's like you eat whatever you can get a hold of.
Yeah. Just to survive.
Yeah.
We'll see again. Missed out on some of those opportunities. But that's not to say, on subsequent playthroughs.
Yeah, and they didn't, and I was probably a little bit like that too in my first playthrough, in that there were definitely several parts in the game where I died quite a few times trying to make it through and try to do things a different way or a better way or the right way. I never got frustrated with it though. Like I never hit that point where I'm just kind of like, I'm gonna set my controller down. I'm done with this. It's
Lord
pissing
knows
me.
I did.
It's pissing me off.
I even tried to give it back to you. I was like, you gotta take this game back from me, man. This is the fucking devil. I was just done with it because I got so pissed at the point that they made this level that was impassable for me.
There was no way I was gonna let you quit.
Yeah. So he kept hounding me, and I freaking did it. I finally did it. But it was a combination of throwing bricks, finding bottles, having shivs. You know what I'm saying? I had to go into this thing fully fucking prepared.
My first time through, I played it completely different than I did my second and third time through, because you don't know what you're doing. I mean, It's one of those games where survival horror, there's limited resources.
Yeah.
So my first time through, it was a lot harder because I made it harder because I was afraid to use my resources, never knowing when you were going to find more tools. And I was like, I can find a way through here. And once you go through, you're like, well, I could have did that and it would have been a lot easier. My second, third time through, I used Molotov cocktails like crazy.
Like crazy on those bloaters?
Yeah, my first time through, I saved all that stuff for my health packs. Because it's you make a health pack and a cocktail the exact same
with the ingredients.
Yeah, so I was afraid to use those. I need that stuff for my health packs.
Well, it's interesting that you say that, because there's always, in a game like this against survival horror, limited resources, there's always a way to play a game. So you could play it defensively in the sense that I'll need this, I'll hide and heal myself or whatever, or just be an offensive juggernaut, dropping Molotovs, shooting shotguns at people, at bloaters and whatnot. But there are different ways to play this game. So how did you choose to play it, Josh? Did you play it? Go
ahead, Sean.
Well, I was just going to say, you guys talked about bloaters. So where I stopped was actually the first encounter with the bloater. And I'm like, all right, I got this far. I can beat this guy. I'm going to squeeze right by him, turn around and throw an arrow in his face. I got right next to him, and it did that death scene.
Ripped your mouth open.
Where he grabs you by your face, and he pulls you apart by the top of your head. And I'm like, I just can't even.
An amazing scene.
No, I shut it down. I put the controller down. I'm like, I'll come back to this.
And you took that scene. Oh, that scene is like a boss level.
Yeah.
And I took it as a boss level. Oddly enough, I didn't have any problem with that guy the first time through.
I don't think I did either.
But it wasn't for anything. It was for me hiding, and then when he'd shoot the stupid spore thing, I'd move and shoot. I'd just move and shoot.
I struggled there because it was the first time you really had, in the way I play very stealth. You were asking Josh. I play very stealth. Like, it was the very first time you had to get into a gunfight.
Loud.
And you had to get into a gunfight there. And the way I struggle to play video games one-handed, and that game where I like the Uncharted games in those games because you do a lot of the duck and cover, the sniping gameplay and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And in that game, in that point, if you're gonna shoot that thing, it closes on. You have to constantly run and gun.
Yep.
And I struggled. I just holding the controller one-handed. I couldn't do it. It took me several days of struggling through to finally beat that guy.
Well, and that's what these guys call it too. It's going loud. It's like firecrackers in a room. All of a sudden, everybody's popping off at this giant thing that's coming through. And then there was that, again, first playthrough versus second playthrough. There was that back room that was full of shit. And I didn't go in there the first time. I actually, when the scene ended, I climbed out, left the building, left a whole room full of supplies.
Yeah.
Right there.
Hidden goodies.
Yeah. So.
But to answer your question, I played That's what I like about it is there's those couple of scenarios, and especially playing through the beginning, they're kind of like, we're going to put you in these scenarios where like, here's what it's going to be like when you need to use guns and be wise, because we're not always going to give you unlimited ammo. Here's scenarios where you can sneak by. So I kind of picked up on that pretty quickly, in that like, okay, I'm going to be able to shoot and kill people, but I'm not always going to have ammo to do that every time. So I'm going to try to conserve everything that I can. And I just try to play, I believe even when one of our conversations about it at some point, that, the best way to word it is I try to play smart. It teaches you to play smart.
Yeah.
And that's, stealth kill and move around, and just, you can play any scenario almost how you want to. Like, okay, I am going to Molotov these guys over here. I'm going to run behind cover over here and try to, stealth take out these guys. And I'm going to pull out my sniper rifle and take out those guys. I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, and for me, it was all about the setting. So again, being in the darkness kind of pissed me off, because I couldn't like raise the brightness on my TV. I can't see shit, and it made me use that R1 or whatever, that right bar, to like do that intense listening.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it would the listen mode would kind of outline them, and it was something that I had to learn to use. It was something that I wasn't using. You know what I'm saying?
It was extra if I read it correctly, it was extra content on the PS3, but it was available for the remastered. They had a mode called Grounded, and it was it was like, I guess it's the most extreme difficulty there is. There's no heads-up display. There's no health meter. So like finding supplies and stuff is almost impossible to do.
Whoa.
And you can't use that sonar thing.
Dang.
Yeah. So
you know what?
Yeah. So like if you're hiding around a corner and you hit R1, it does nothing.
Well, if I were to play that right now, going through that hotel, I would slaughter everything in that room, just because I know exactly where those motherfuckers are at this point. But there was... Oh, sorry.
I was going to say, you get spoiled by it. I used it all the time. And when you play as Ellie, she has the ability, but it's nowhere near as strong as Joel's. And you learn like how quickly you got spoiled using that, because then you're playing as her and you're like, you listen and it pops up and you don't see anybody, but you're around a corner and then somebody's waiting there.
Yeah, everything, because she didn't have the upgrades that Joel did, so her health is way lower. She takes damage a lot faster.
Yeah, because she's a tiny person. There's also the element of playing smart with her. That's my again. Once I understood the bow and arrow, it was my favorite weapon in the whole game, because I couldn't. It wasn't just, hey, here's a one kill shot, first shot, first kill type of a scenario. It was also distracting clickers and distracting enemies. It was so easy. I'd fire an arrow over there, they'd hear the noise, and then turn around and head towards the noise, and I just kind of do that crawl sneak really fast behind them and take them out. It was so it made so much damn sense. And then you're not wasting your arrow. You can go pick your arrow up, and there was so much to using the bow and arrow. I think it's almost like a cheating weapon to use. I hit a guy in the leg from like 30 yards, and he dropped dead.
See, my first time through, I couldn't figure out either. I tried, headshotting people with it. It didn't work. And then it's something, I think it was Josh's brother. We were talking online about it, and he said it was his favorite weapon. And being a stealth player, I made sure the second time and third time through that I leveled it up right away as soon as I could.
Yeah.
And it was, like you said, though, it's if you got a headshot on most guys, it killed them. And like you said, it was very quiet. 90% of the time you could walk up, pick your arrow back up. And then I did like you said, you'd use it, you shoot the wall, and the clickers and everything would run to it, and then you get them all in a group, and you just throw a cocktail at it.
Yep, and it just worked at that point. So when I upgraded the bow and arrow to its highest level, I was like, I should have done this in the beginning. I would have saved myself so much trouble, because you can use that weapon in any scenario, even if you've gone loud, even if people are popping off, and you can still use it, because you're guaranteed a freaking kill if you draw back strong enough. Even center mass, the thing's dead. So also coming upon, what do they call them, runners or whatever?
Yeah, runners.
Yeah, they would be like bent down chewing on people, and you just right through them. I mean, it just made the game so much more fun, especially with Ellie in winter, when you had to go through that camp.
I was gonna bring all those up. So, and maybe for those that don't know. Oh, by the way, spoiler alert.
This whole podcast is a spoiler alert.
This entire goddamn thing needs a stamp.
Well, it's okay. No, okay. So the story plays out through the course of the 4 seasons, with these kind of actually like each one is like end capped by this big, powerful
Event.
scene before it transitions into the next season. Do you guys before we discuss through all of those, did you guys have a favorite one?
I think Winter was my favorite. I think
Jump in.
Winter.
Were you surprised? Did you know that you were going to be able to jump in as Ellie? Were you?
I had no idea I was able to play as Ellie, and also I had no idea what was about to happen to Joel, and that entire thing kept me. Once I got to Winter, I was like, I'm now settled into this game, and I'm gonna finish it because it drove me forward. Because now you're hunting this deer. There's this whole thing about Joel okay?
And it was probably even when you're in, when you're in fall and you're going through that stuff at the campus in Colorado, and you're like, I gotta be getting close to the end of this game. And then that happens to Joel, and boom, you're in Winter, and you're controlling Ellie, and you're just kind of like, oh man.
I thought I was really close to the end
like,
of the game.
oh man.
And it got the rug pulled out from under me. So
I really like the scene where you're going through the suburbs and that with the
through around Pittsburgh.
well, first Bill. When you meet Bill,
Oh, Bill,
that
and
son
you're
of a
going through
bitch.
there because,
Yeah.
and then when you go, that's when Joel and Ellie, because it's kind of there's the quiet areas you're walking through, and that's where you really start to find the extra dialogue points.
Yeah.
And when you run into Bill, and you're in his house, and he's yelling at Ellie, "Don't touch my stuff," and she's sneaking through and stealing his comic books and stuff like that. That's really where her character starts to flesh out, and you really start to see more Joel's character and her, and that's where they really start to bond.
That's in summer.
And then the scene with the other family you meet, the two brothers.
Yeah.
And I really like those scenes where because you see Ellie as a kid, and it adds to the emotion of it because you see there's this girl who's acting all hard and she's cussing and swearing and she's wanting to kill people and she's begging for a gun. But then you see her, and she's just a kid, and it really fleshes out in my opinion, the emotional aspect of it. And then here she is, she's just kid. She just wants to be a kid, but yet the weight of the world has been thrust upon her shoulders because she's the cure. She's the one.
Yeah.
yeah, and that's the incredible part. And like I mentioned in the beginning, you even like lose sight of that playing the game. And all of a sudden, it's not about whatever. And going towards the end of the game, you realize that shit, even they make it known to you that, hey, that's not what it's about at all, basically.
No, it is, but it is not.
It is, but it isn't. Well, you had to have the first mover in this story, which was Ellie coming into Joel's life. And if you didn't have that, you wouldn't have anything else. So you had to have that. But after that, Joel wanted to do one of these protection father-like figure things to Ellie, right?
Joel, through most of the game, really rejected Ellie. He didn't want her. She was, from the get-go, she was a reminder of what he lost. And from the get-go, when Marlene first, pushed them on her, Joel refused and didn't want to do it. And, I wrote down in my notes something Tess said to him. She looks at him as they're walking away, and she's like, "Joe, yes, I know." It's just she knows that Joel does not want to do that. She knows how hard it is going to be to have a kid around.
Yeah,
it's the same age as his daughter. And another thing that jumped out at me in my third time through is the game starts. It's Joel's birthday, and his daughter gives him a watch.
Yeah.
And one of the first things after Joel escorts Ellie back to their apartment, and he just lays down. He doesn't want anything to do with her. I'm going to go to sleep.
Your watch is broken.
Your watch is broken. And she says it in such a snotty way, like, I don't know who you are.
He wanted to cut her open right
And it's just like, that just hit, you know what I mean? It's just one of those things. That's the teenage angst. I'm going to say whatever I can say right now that I think is going to hurt you. Your stupid watch is broken.
Yeah. And
I don't know if she was saying it to be hurtful, but
she was upset.
She was more of a smart ass.
She also at that moment didn't have any idea.
Yeah, she didn't know how important the watch was. But
She took a jab.
She took a jab.
Yeah.
Your watch is
But
broken. Why are you wearing that stupid thing?
Right.
On the other side of that, though, and actually I thought you were gonna steal that story from me, is like in his progress and the development of the story between these two is when you are still trying to make your way to the Capitol building, and you just get outside of the museum, and there's that cinematic when he's looking at the Capitol building and says, "Is that everything that you were hoping for?" And she says, the jury's still out, but you can't deny that view. And she walks
Yeah.
away, and the camera's
view is
focused
awesome.
on Joel. The camera's focused on Joel, and he just kind of does that half smile, and he like looks down at his watch, and he touches his watch. That was pretty cool.
Yeah, but she, just to be fair, she takes jabs at Joel like at least
Well,
at
for the
least through
entire game,
few
really.
seasons. She does
Yeah.
take her jabs, but she makes it really apparent that she doesn't want to be on this stupid thing either, right? She doesn't. Does she fully understand the weight?
By the end, absolutely.
By the end, sure, but in the beginning,
Yeah.
when she's taking jab, and look at her talking to Bill. She treats Bill like shit, right?
That whole interaction is
Bill.
hilarious, though.
Bill was, dude, what a crazy man.
The first watch through, I liked Bill. He was just that grumpy old dude, and he talked about that good friend of his. And then I did a little research on it. And everyone's like, Bill seems a little gay. I was like, she is
Bill
not.
was totally gay.
Yeah.
And then I watched it again the second time. I was like, oh, that guy's gay.
There was a
Yeah.
note you could find
Yeah.
in his house. Again, something you missed if you don't play it.
Right.
And it's a note where his partner leaves him and just
Oh.
blasts Bill and said, I never wanted to be with you. You're a jerk. You're an ass. This, that. And you have the option whether or not you give it to Bill.
And when you give it to him,
And you give it to him. And the thing about it is for a completionist, like me being, I didn't want to give it to him because you're like, who wants to read this? This is
Right.
somebody who died that you remember good things about. Why do you want to give him this note and ruin his memory?
Right.
But the completionist of me, if you don't give it to him, he doesn't drop it, and then you can't pick it back up, so you can't get 100% on the game.
so I know you want to go through the seasons and whatnot, but before we go through the seasons and what took place in those seasons, just real quick, Jeff has a specific take on the actual fungus, because these aren't zombies as we've all come to realize, right? I mean, they're not zombies.
No, I mean, they're
Kind of
zombies per
zombies.
se. They're not necessarily the undead that we're used to.
The classic zombie.
Correct.
They're not
Yes.
that classic.
They're not the George Romero zombie.
So what'd you find out about the spores and the fungus?
So, out of my own curiosity, I kind of heard a little about it, so I did a little bit of research. I think it started in the in Central America, basically in the warm weather areas. There are actually a plant fungus that will overtakes insects, mostly ants, and it will grow into their brain, and it takes over their bodily control, and it forces the ants, the different insects, to, if they're underground, they're forced to come up out of ground so the plants can grow.
That's fucking crazy.
So the game is kind of sort of based out of that idea that it spread from the insects somehow into people. They don't really go into it. But that's where the initial U.S. outbreak at the beginning of the game happened in Texas, in Joelstown, because it came up through the border, from the warmer equator type, countries.
That's the insane part about it, is that it's, when we think of fungus, it's just either we're thinking of a mushroom, or even if we think of spores or whatever, we don't think of those organisms by which control is had. And the cool bit about this is that they didn't just leave it as, here's a normal looking guy having a problem. It's they had the fungus growing on their faces. They had different kinds of enemies, and I put quotes around enemies because what level of infection they have. The higher the level of infection,
Well, it
the
was
more crazy it manifests.
It was a timed thing, really, because based
Because even the
on
runners had like some.
the runners were kind of like stage 1.
Yeah.
The clickers were like stage 2, and then the
Bloaters.
bloaters would be final stage of like, it's just completely taken over.
Did they ever mention in the game, or even outside the game, that there was a time limit to this type of thing? Because obviously, if you run out of hosts, wouldn't that fungus no longer exist if it just runs out of hosts? But the animals weren't affected, because in winter you're hunting a deer. So the dogs were running around too.
Yeah, I don't think they ever went to. I know when you walked into the lab originally, where you thought you were gonna, originally meet up with the fireflies, they were testing primates and monkeys and stuff.
Yeah.
But I don't think they ever really went into whether or not it spreads to other creatures. There were never any infected creatures in the game or anything that I recall.
So it intuitively begs the question: was there something in an animal that could have prevented this disaster in man? But I mean,
it made the jump to humans, so it might be logical to say that once it recognizes it's running out of hosts, it might pick another host.
Did it seem to, again, something they didn't really tell you, how
Right.
quickly did this thing spread? Because it seemed like it spread fairly fucking quickly,
Well,
didn't it?
the jump from the beginning of the game when it first starts happening.
Yeah.
To when you take over as Joel with Tess again in the quarantine zone was
Yeah,
20
what's the
years.
gap? That's 20 years?
20 years.
Holy shnik. I didn't know Joel was that old when I took control of that guy.
Yeah.
No wonder he can't climb up shit. I need a ladder. Man, fuck you. Now I got to look for a ladder, But I didn't really say that to Joel.
I can't swim. Push me on this thing.
But the cool part about that, it's a throwback though. It felt like Ico,
It is. It's a gameplay. It's a changing gameplay. It's a puzzle you got to solve to find it. But it's one of those things where you spend a year with this girl the first time, and you're going across the country. The first time you found out she can't swim, why don't you spend a couple days teaching her to swim?
You got all this time. Essentially, you have nothing else to do but teach this little girl how to swim. But again,
Right at the very end of the game, you're still helping her through the bus depot, through the water.
Oh man! And the best part is, though, I think, is that they should have had some sort of explanation of she should have feared water somehow.
She did.
She did.
And she did. They really, and I thought that was one of the great plot points. I mean, if we want to jump to it, is at the what's the city with the bridge? Was that Philadelphia?
That was Pittsburgh.
Pittsburgh. When they're leaving Pittsburgh with that other family, and the guy and the brother leave them behind because they're running out of time and they're being chased by that tank. And Ellie says, we got to jump. And Joel's like, no, you can't swim. And she just jumps. And the trust she had for him by that point to know that he was going to save her, to me was again, something I caught the third time through. And she wasn't just running out of things to do. She knew they had to jump. She said, you'll save me. That she knew at that point.
She wasn't worried.
Trusted him enough that he was going to jump in and save her. To me, that was another big plot point for me.
No, that's outstanding because that was the key. That's how they're going to survive. In the end, I think Joel even realized they needed each other. You know what I'm saying? Because there were things Joel couldn't do that you needed Ellie to do in the end.
Right. Yeah, there were a few points
And
that he had. There were a couple points that he had to trust her to go up and over a fence or through a hole he couldn't fit to unlock the door for her.
I really enjoyed that because they took gameplay and they made it part of the story. It's not thrown in there. It was there was a part.
In the documentary, they talk about that. They're just kind
It's
of
a documentary?
Oh, yeah.
What the fuck?
It's on your PS4 disc.
Oh, well, shit. I don't have a PS4.
When you guys were pushing her through the water, was there ever that fear that something was going to take you under? Because watching that, I was like, "Oh shit, he's gonna get eaten. There's something coming up."
You have that thought always.
I had the
That was
fear
the
that the board
first
was
thought I
the
had.
board was always tilting like this, at an angle, a real
gonna
sharp angle.
dunk
I'm
her.
like, I gotta slow down. Pushing her, or she's gonna get a little bit of water and melt.
I'm going to get that game over screen. I'm going to have to push her all over again.
Oh god! And then who knows what clicker's waiting around the corner for me? So you wanted to go through season by season? Yeah, I'm just jumping right into that mother.
Okay.
Classic
You said
Mike.
your favorite was
My favorite
all of it?
is fall. So with Jeff's, his favorite moments were in summer, which starts the game off. So we can start there with him.
I don't think was it summer.
A lot of the through the summer, like I said, I really enjoy the most of the game. Was the build up of Joel and Ellie's relationship and watching it progress, and the few times you get to see her be a kid. By the end of the game, those points, they're gone. I mean, you guys are fighting for your life at the different points of the game. But I really like that dichotomy of she's trying to be tough. She's trying to convince Joel she can survive. Give me a gun. I don't know how many times she asked 4 or 5 times, give me a gun, before he's finally forced to give her a gun. But then at the same point, you see those elements where some of the hidden plot points, she pulls out a joke book. There's 5 or 6 hidden points.
Oh
So
my
she'll
God,
pull out a joke book
hilarious.
and just read these cheesy riddles. And I catch myself laughing out loud as I'm playing it.
Yeah, they're pun jokes.
Yeah.
And they're awesome.
Yes, yeah, they're hilarious. Mike, one you'll enjoy is why do space rocks taste better than Earth rocks?
Why?
Because they're meteor.
Buzzing. Yeah, ring me up on that one. I would have
No,
vomited if I heard that in
She's
game.
telling those as you're walking through different points of the game, right?
There's plot points. She stops, and if you wait around in an area, she'll pull out a book and we're being too serious. I got some jokes, and she'll just start
Okay.
reading from this joke book, and she'll
Okay.
read 5 or 6 jokes, and then she tells you, okay, I'm done now, and you'll move on.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So summer for you means in game. Summer for you means learning about each other.
Yeah, it's
discovering.
the buildup of their relationship. It's the going from at the very beginning. We've talked about Joel. Just he wanted nothing to do with Ellie. He didn't want to be there. Tess forced it upon him. And it's just that he fought it. He didn't want to do it, but because Tess told him we're going to do this, he went along with it. And then you see her. You just it's the more personable part of the game, I feel.
Yeah, it's before you get a little too deep in
Yes.
a way.
Yeah.
So yours was fall.
Yeah. One of my that's actually one of my favorite scenes in Summer, when you brought it up a couple of times now, is when she's begging for a gun. She wants to help out in any way that she can, and he just doesn't want to trust her with it. Doesn't want to put that responsibility on her. And then that scene when Joel's like being drowned like in that water in the hotel, and she saves him and shoots that guy.
Yeah.
But I love the reaction too. By the way, she's like, "I shot the hell out of that guy, huh?"
Oh my god, dude! What a cool scene though too. I mean, that's her kind of.
But they do, and just like the motion cap and like the voice acting, which we can definitely get into because it needs to be spoken of. But like the way that they played off though too, because you can see with like the little animations and the voice acting that they did that was so superb, is like you can see those moments that like Jeff is talking about, how irritated Joel is, or like how put off Ellie is with being with this stranger, this guy, and they're forced together to go across country now at this point, and her movements and everything are different, and you can see in that scene when she first shoots that guy of like how nervous and how scared she is. Like you can see it on her face, and she almost starts to tear up. And then like the scene like right after is like once they get out of the hotel and he gives her that rifle finally to help out, and he kind of says like thank you in his own way. That's where they actually really probably truly start to bond.
And it's going back to what I said at the beginning. It's you don't realize what it is to take a life until you do it. And here she wanted a gun. I can help. But the minute she shot him, she's just like shocked, and I shot the hell out of that guy. And it reminds me of one of my favorite movies. I don't know if you guys have ever seen Unforgiven.
Not in ages.
Not in a long time.
Well, I don't want to go too far into it, but it's Clint Eastwood is just a very hard-edged retired gunslinger, and this kid comes up to him and hires him to go on this bounty, and the kid's talking the whole movie about how good of a killer he is and how good of a killer he is, trying to impress Clint Eastwood. And at the end of the movie, he actually kills somebody and just loses it, and he goes and he leaves Clint Eastwood. And he's like, well, I thought we got to go collect the bounty. And he's like, I don't want the money. He's like, I killed somebody. I don't want money for it. I'm not like you. And he leaves. And it's just when he killed the guy, he was like the same thing. His line was, I killed the shit out of that guy. I shot the shit out of him. He kept saying it over and over. Like he was just, I shot the shit out of that guy.
Yeah.
And he was just trying to convince himself that he did the right thing when he knew deep down he felt bad for killing somebody for money.
Yeah.
And it's just that same point with her. She knew she had to do it, but it was just emotionally, she was an emotional wreck after it. And Joel supported her and said at one point, he's like, I just want you to know it was me or him.
Yeah.
And so,
But that I took. You know what I took that line as? Thank you.
yeah, it was,
Because he didn't actually say thank you.
I
That
think
was the
I think
thank
she
you.
made that comment.
That was her response. He says back there it was either me or him, and he jumps down, and she's like, "You're welcome."
Yeah,
Yes.
boom, yep. And that was really cool that you mentioned that part, because I'd have totally forgotten about it. That was probably one of the more one of the more moving parts, because I've never been any good at button tapping. I fucking suck, man. So like God of War was my worst enemy.
Oh,
I mean,
no.
like I'd light my tricep on fire trying to tap X to like, lift this Titan's leg off of me or something. I'm in this game and this guy's fighting me. I'm like, I'm fucking dead. I can't even. And like the screen would go almost to the point where you die, and didn't you wrestle him enough to have a couple of times where you have to be like
a couple times she thought you
Yeah.
were gonna win, and
I
then he takes back over.
Yeah.
And she comes and shoots him, and his first response was, "I told you to stay."
Such a powerful, yeah.
And it's just like she's pissed that I just saved your life, and you know what I mean. He's just like, you know, that I don't want anything to do with you. I don't need you.
Right.
You know.
And really, in the end, it's just like screaming, "I need you."
And right after that scene, when you take out all those guys after he gives Ellie the rifle, I like how it plays out afterwards too, because you know Joel's kind of like doing cleanup and grabbing ammo from other guns and stuff, and she doesn't walk up. She's not like a smart ass and kind of like, yeah, see, I told you I was a badass. You know, she was like shaking still and was like, how did I do?
Yes.
You know, I love they played like all those moments. I felt like they played them perfectly.
When you were talking about, you know, the voice acting and whatnot's a big deal. I mean, that can leave you at the doorstep without even playing the game. I could just, you know, I've seen shitty voice acting in a game. Hell, I've seen it in an animated series too. I mean, you have bad voice acting, it takes you right out.
Yeah.
So that's key. Sean, did you have a favorite particular season that you had gone through, that you had seen?
I like winter, just for the reveal of the camp.
Me too. That was my favorite.
When he's sitting there and he's like, yeah, and you know, all my friends died at this warehouse, and you're like, wait a minute. And then he kind of looks over at her, and Ellie starts bringing up that rifle.
Yeah.
And he goes, and my buddy said that he saw a man. And then you're like, no way. With a kid, and I was like, yes.
Yeah, that's the cool part is now you have this what do you call it? Your reputation precedes you.
Right.
In this yeah, and that was a real tense moment, that whole moment there. And then going through the camp was really exciting for me because you could have played it any which way you wanted. Bow and arrow, again, reigned for me. And yeah, you didn't get the range of the listening, and I caught that after probably dying 30 more times. I caught that afterwards, and I also caught that I would run into some of these houses to get away, to try to hide, and I would find more arrows. And I was like, okay, if I die, I got to come back to this house. I got to sneak into this house and go upstairs, and I find arrows in the bed, and I found arrows in the couch cushion and whatever. So I just stocked up on arrows, and I'd come around the corner and just take a guy out. And then I'd see another guy walking. I'd make a noise by shooting an arrow like near him. He would turn completely distracted. I'd sneak up, shoot him with an arrow. I mean, the camp felt more realistic to me probably than any other part of the game because I had little houses to hide in. I had rocks to hide behind. I didn't alert anybody. I cleaned that whole area out enough so I was just walking around. Let me collect some ammunition. You know, I was just fucking around at that point, taking in the scenery.
The ghost town.
Yeah. You take everybody out there.
When he's talking to you and he's going, you know, you took out my friends. I'm like, well, they came after us first. And then I was like, wait, did the guy stealth through the rest of that level or did you have to kill everybody?
I don't think you have to kill everybody on any level in that entire game. And I'll tell you why I know that for a fact. Because I ran through some levels and didn't touch a motherfucker a single time. There was a point where it might have been the Capitol building when they flood it with soldiers. And I was like, I tried and tried and tried. I'm like, I'm just going to run and gun. And that's what I did. I ran out of there and it went to a cutscene.
And you can run, yeah.
And
you
it totally took me out of the level.
Just go into the sewer from that
It's
point.
a shitty thing to do, Jeff, because I see it on your face.
I actually stealthed all the way through the camp, my last playthrough. I was really determined on this last playthrough. I stealthed through the Capitol building without killing anybody.
I was going to say, how the fuck did you handle the Capitol building flooded with soldiers?
You just run out. Isn't that you? I think you just sneak around and you run out the front door. There are areas they make you fight. There are areas you have to fight.
Choke points, basically.
But there were a lot of points that through deception and tossing arrows and in bottles. And in bricks, you can distract them and run behind them. And that was one of the areas where in the camp that I made it all the way through without killing anybody.
Well, that's difficult to say the least, but doable. I mean, like you said, there are points where they make you fight.
I actually didn't, with the seasons and everything talking about them, I actually didn't expect that. That kind of caught me off guard. It caught me by surprise. But like, I like that it's really cool in that with each one, that they end capped those with like a big moment, a big scene, and then it would like cut to black and you transition like with summer going into fall when you're teaming up and budding up with what's his name, Henry and Sam, and Sam ends up getting infected and they end up having to kill him. So Henry,
what a crazy scene!
Right at that scene, Henry shoots himself. He kills himself. Cut to black. Yeah, and then it transitions into fall.
I really like that scene where, Joel instantly wants to kill the younger brother. And
immediately.
Henry's the older brother, right?
Yeah.
Henry pulls the gun, and he's pointing it at Joel, and Joel's like, put the gun away. Put the gun away. Put the gun away. And Henry's just like repeating over and over, it's your fault. It's your fault.
Yeah.
And you think he's blaming Joel and Ellie, and he's going to kill him. And then he says it one last time, it's your fault. And he turns the gun on himself, and he shoots himself. And just that feeling of like he wasn't talking about them. He was talking about himself.
Yeah.
And here his younger brother died, and he blames himself. And
Yep.
it's just, again, another scene. I teared up.
He put the period. He put the period on his own sentence.
You know, I've got kids. I've got 2 younger brothers. It's just, you know, to know that responsibility that, you know, you're you know, you take care of them and you failed.
Mm-hmm.
I mentioned the road earlier on. So this again is a story that I watched and then, you know, read more recently, again, still before having a son of my own. And then now all of those things, I feel like I need to revisit on some of those things, because I feel like there'd be even a bigger impact, because now
Absolutely.
I can put myself in some of these situations and be like, damn, how would I fucking handle something like this? And you know, you alluded to it earlier, you know, could I actually make it through something like this? And I could tell you, if The Last of Us is any indication, I could live 150 lifetimes and not make it through, but we try. So we just, you know, unfortunately you can't resurrect in real life.
Well, and sometimes you just don't know until you do.
Yes, you're right. You're right about that.
You know?
And it's a microcosm. Some of the levels in this game is like showing you that you're gonna fail. No one went through this game and didn't get killed or in some way, or
Right.
got a perfect, you know, we didn't die. Everyone dies in these games. Not every man really lives. Pardon my Scottish. But you go through these levels and you learn, and those failures actually turn out to be pretty astounding lessons. And you figure out the best ways to make it through. Again, playing smart, but you don't walk into a situation immediately playing it smart. You just don't. At least I don't. I have to read the situation first, and I have to fuck up first. Then I realize the path I'm supposed to take.
It's the you know, the old what's that? Hindsight's 2020.
Hindsight's 50-50.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
2020.
2020 doesn't make 100. I'm just kidding. Jeff doesn't know me well enough to know that I'm a jackass.
So let me ask you guys and
He's
talk
learning.
about a couple of big
Don't
points.
need to know you that long.
A couple of big points that happen in fall. Fall is the season where it starts off when you're going to Colorado, searching for Tommy and that whole group to essentially hand off Ellie and all of that. Two big key scenes that I kind of want to talk to you guys about in fall are the scene that happens when Ellie runs away because Joel is going to give, Ellie realizes that he's just going to hand her off to Tommy. And by that point, she likes Joel and she trusts Joel and
she doesn't want to do it.
She wants to be in his care, yeah. And so she runs off when she figures out that he's just going to dump on her. So they end up meeting her in that house that she ran away to, and there's that just emotional, powerful scene where they just kind of have it out and they're yelling at each other, and she kind of finally brings up, because by that point she had been told the story of Joel's daughter, so she brings up and says, I'm not her. I kind of want your guys' take on that. How did that scene kind of hit you guys, if you recall?
There was something she said, and I'm drawing a blank, but yeah, it was a really emotional scene because it's the first time, and up until that point, the first time she acknowledges she knows what's wrong with Joel, and she gets it, and I think he says something to her like at first that you're not allowed to talk about her, or we're not talking about her. And while he's sitting this whole game telling her you've got to let things go, he can't let go.
Right.
Into that point. And yes, it was a really serene scene because she storms off and she's yelling at him that you're leaving me behind and you're the one person I trust. And then she goes off on this horse ride and you eventually find her and you walk in, and I just remember it being, she's sitting there upstairs in a bedroom and just looking out the window, and it's such a calm scene when he shows up, and the music playing is just very serene.
she's reading that girl's diary. She's
Yes,
reading a
yes.
diary that was left behind, and she's like wondering aloud, like, is this really what they had to worry about?
Yeah, they
Was,
worry
like,
about boys and clothes.
boys and who they were going to go to the dance with, and things like that. And
It is cool to get that perspective that the world,
just another one of those
changed.
scenes where
That-
she's
this-
proven she never got to be a little girl. She's had her whole life. It's been hell.
Exactly. This infected, quarantined world is the only one that she's known.
Definitely that. And that's kind of a bummer, but at the same time, it moves the story along quite nicely too, because you
Yeah.
do come upon stuff like diaries. She flat out says things, that you're like, damn, this is a kid. You forget that after a while, I think. But like you said, earlier on, you're like, well,
She comes across very, very rough through most of the game.
Yeah,
you know
like
what I mean?
you're like-
She's constantly cussing and swearing
You're like,
and
"Bitch, I'm gonna
F
leave you
and,
behind."
Yeah, I mean, it's just, she tries most of the game. She tries to be an adult, and she's trying to prove that she can take care of herself and she belongs. And that's why I like the scenes where she is being a kid, because it shows that other side.
I feel like she definitely had both. Like, I was never like, okay, kid, enough of being the smartass. I felt like
I never felt it,
like
but-
she had a perfect balance.
Yes.
I did. I felt that at certain points, I was like, that's not the appropriate time to be making that sort of statement. But it was Ellie.
She was.
I was like,
yeah.
okay, this character's she's trying to be hardcore and have a hard shell, and
Well, and oftentimes she was kind of like the ice breaking humor. She would be the one to come through.
she
and
was the
say,
Michelangelo of the Ninja Turtles. She was just, without the dude and all that stuff, right?
without
She just-
that, definitely.
yeah. But she's one of those characters that are more like way more complex than what's on the surface.
Absolutely.
That's what's cool also about this game is that again, you don't have this flat two-dimensional character set. Everyone in this game had something about them. Josh just made a list of side characters: Tommy, Tess, Marlene, Bill, Henry, Sam, and David. Every single one of those people have a backstory that you got filled in on.
Yeah.
You got to know some of these people, and the cool thing is, again, it being a game, they didn't totally have to do any of that stuff. They could have just shot from the hip with Tommy. He's a non-factor. He plays a huge role later on, massive.
Yeah.
So with just to throw this out there, since we're through the seasons, we haven't done spring yet.
And I have one more thing to bring up
Go
in
ahead.
fall.
Go ahead. Sorry.
It's actually in the end scene for fall that transitions into winter, because it kind of blew me away. Like, I didn't expect it, and man, I remember playing through that moment, and like, seriously, like, my hands were like shaking and the controller was sweating. I was just kind of like, no, like, this can't be happening like right now. But it's that scene at the college where you're probably taking out David's people.
Yeah.
Joel, him and that guy fall off the balcony, and that spike goes through like Joel's stomach, and he gets hurt, and you're just stumbling through that scene with, Ellie trying to help you and make it out, and you make it back to the horse, and then she's basically, saying, hey, stay with me, you need to tell me what to do, and the scene cuts to black. Like,
Yeah.
were you guys?
I thought it was done. I thought Joel was done. I've seen these movies before, I've seen Game of Thrones. Okay, I know people who you really like are gonna get killed. I just had that gut feeling that Joel was gone. I totally bought in. And Joanna's sitting right next to me, and has this look on her face, like, what? Even I was like, what?
I thought for just a brief minute that the game was going to be bold enough to take out Joel and you finish the journey as Ellie. Like, I thought they were going to be bold enough.
How
for a
did you
minute.
feel when you thought you were going to be Ellie for the rest of the game?
I was
Because I didn't know
scared.
how much was left.
I was scared.
I was like, I don't know that I was disappointed, but I liked Joel. I'm like, no, how can you do this? But then again, getting used to being Ellie and sneaking through the camp and doing that whole winter scene it drew me into Ellie. I wasn't into Ellie. I'm not into Ellie. She's like, I don't know how old she is. All right, guys.
She's 14.
Okay, don't call anybody. I'm saying as a character, I didn't buy into her until I was her in a way.
It definitely helped. I mean,
yeah.
it definitely helped you get to know that character and her weaknesses and playing a different character. Not, like we talked earlier, not being as strong as Joel, not having the health as Joel, not.
And she talked.
She didn't have, and through her parts of the game, there weren't as many resources. You had to be even more stealthy
stingy,
with her,
too.
and which is realistic because a 14-year-old girl is not going to be able to fight her way through the situation of a 45-year-old man might be able to fight his way through.
Right. And I at that point you rely on gameplay and you use the emotion of the character. So she would hit certain points, as you said before. She'd hit certain points and she'd speak to you. Like in dialogue, she's speaking to herself.
Right.
And you're like, you know, she's actually having a really fucking hard time with this whole thing and trying to get through certain parts. You're like, I don't know if she's gonna make it in the end. I mean, if I have to do the rest of the game with just Ellie, I don't know if she's gonna cut it.
And I like that even like her attacks are different because she's so much smaller and weaker, but she had the knife as like her melee, so she wouldn't just kind of like you hit triangle, take one swing, you're taking somebody out. Like she would have to like jump on them and like start stabbing them in the front. Like
you really couldn't stealth kill people with her because you couldn't sneak up behind and quietly choke them out. When she did stealth kills, they were louder. And you had to be more careful when you did them.
She jumped on their back.
She jumped on their back and they screamed and she just stabbed them 5 or 6 times in the neck. And it's just, it seemed to me when you did those type of kills, they attracted more attention than Joel's stealth kills did.
Which is why which is why I would sneak up. I wouldn't use the stealth kill because I already learned my lesson there. I'd sneak up and then just arrow in the back. That just works. Through the heart, So, spring.
Yeah, she makes it through winter. She ends up getting some medicine for Joel. Joel makes a comeback. He has to save at the end of winter. That's another big transition scene because that was another big powerful moment actually between Joel and Ellie is when he walks in and kind of is the aftermath of the fight between Ellie and David.
Yeah.
And she's just like kind of in hysterics and she's crying and he finds her and they hug and basically tells her everything's going to be all right and he calls her baby girl.
Yeah, which is like his own
yes.
daughter. Yeah.
I caught that a lot.
So as soon as you hear that, you're like, fuck this game.
I really thought the game, going back to the end of the season there with Joel getting hurt and then Ellie in that fight, they really brought you into those fight scenes by making you control Joel when he's hurt. And getting out of that university and how you're stumbling.
Helpless as fuck in a way.
And, at one point somebody's running at Ellie and you've got to shoot him, but you've got very limited control over your weapon and the screen's kind of fading. And there at the end of that fight scene with David, when you have to crawl, you can see the machete and you have to crawl to it and you're just waiting, like every horror movie you've ever seen, he's going to grab my ankle.
Yeah.
And you're moving so slowly and just... when she finally gets it, that release, and she just jumps on top and just goes to town. It's just that emotional release was just, was just crazy.
The tension in those scenes, my neck might as well have been a column made in some far off land thousands of years ago. It was so stiff. I'm like, Jesus. But you're right. It drew you right in. It forced you to be the character and to be part of the story, whether you wanted to or not. You were going to do this thing.
Jumping ahead to the spring when you're first walking, you're walking into the university there, and or was that no? You're not walking into where are you walking into at the beginning of this? You're walking into the
you're going to
the outskirts of the lab.
You make it through you make it through like the bus depot, and then you go into the
giraffe depot.
You do. You make it. You make it into that.
No,
big
right before
yard.
the bus depot. Right before the bus depot. Right when the spring starts.
You're just on the highway.
Yeah, and you're walking with Joel, and he's at this point Joel's attempting to crack jokes, and he's being light. He feels the journey is ending, and she's just she doesn't want to talk. She's very quiet because of what she just did, and she makes a comment about somewhere. The things we've done, the things I've done after having to kill David. And it's just you can tell that this whole journey is really starting to wear on her and she's just ready for it to be done.
Well, and that's why when you brought up earlier, did I? When you brought up earlier, or maybe Mike did, that does she realize the impact of this? Does she really know that like what's at stake and like what her life really means? And actually, I think Joel says that almost exactly that. Like, do you even realize what your life means? And she does in that scene. She says, like, after everything that we've been through, it can't be for nothing.
Yes.
I liked the traits the characters switched throughout the game. You start off where Ellie was like the fun one, and she was loosened up, and Joel was the hard ass. And almost by the end of it, they switched.
Yeah, because Joel was vulnerable at
Yeah.
that point. He was injured, he was hurt, and he had to rely on a little girl in a way, right?
And
So
he came to terms with the journey. He came to terms with the loss of his daughter. He came to terms with the loss of Tess at the beginning of the game, and he found somebody. You know, he found
gave her
happiness.
his watch, didn't he? Did he not
No.
give her his watch?
No.
No, he's pretty sure he's still wearing it at the end of the game.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. And then
We've talked. You know, he made a promise to her. She was at one point. She had never really heard a lot of music before, and at one point she finds out he sings. He sings and plays guitar, and at one point she says, "When we get through this, you've got to sing me a song."
right.
And so
You were saying she says this can't be for nothing. She again, I think when she gets to that point when we are in spring, I feel like after all the dark things that she had to participate in as well, that she probably understood Joel a hell of a lot more at that point, because even before then she started probably settling into the idea of who Joel was. But you don't know a man unless you walk a mile in his shoes, as they say.
Mm-hmm.
Well, she walked in Joel's shoes there for a little while. In essence, she had to be like I gotta kill this guy.
She had to keep an she had to essentially protect him and take care of him.
Yeah, so roles were reversed, like Sean said. They were not just reversed on the outside, like I have to take care of this person, but they were also emotionally reversed, because she had a huge. Now she had another weight on her back,
Yeah.
taking care of Joel. But it worked out, kind of. So what else in spring?
Spring was relatively short. I mean, spring, you essentially just kind of finish your journey. I mean, obviously,
The giraffe.
looking at this guy right here, one of the big emotional scenes in spring is something so little as that they stumble across these giraffes that are just free roaming out in the world, and
Yeah,
they're actually able to
presumably
pet it.
from the zoo. I mean,
the idea is that there was like these animals that were actually, got out of the zoo, and they're just wandering around.
And the cool bit was that you had all this, up until that point, you had all this fucking dreary shit you were constantly crawling through. And then the scene where you come into the break in a building and you get this very serene, surreal.
And they kind of make you worry too at first, where she's just kind of like, "Did you see that? Did you see that?" She's and she goes running off, and
fuck did I
Joel's
see?
like, "Ellie, wait up, Ellie, wait up," and just kind of like, "What is it? What am I gonna run across?"
Yeah.
I remember stopping and like, because there's windows right there.
Yeah.
And she's like, did you see that? And I'm stopping, like looking. I'm like trying to like look through the windows. What did she see?
Right.
And but you can't. You don't see anything. You got to follow her. And like you said, that scene, it's so. That's the scene where she snapped out of it.
Yeah, really.
That was the scene where she came back to.
Yeah.
And I think she realized that there are still beautiful things in the world worth fighting for, worth living for, just like you said, having those giraffes come up and she gets to pet one and seeing the beauty of the world.
And then in the end, I mean, look, it wasn't just her trusting in that animal who's wild. It was the animal trusting her too. So the demeanor of that entire scene as well, and the music again, and the scenery again. But you had, in the middle of this, as you said, in the middle of this dystopian ruined world, here's this thing of beauty that's in the middle of a ruined fucking building, essentially.
She's standing there looking out over the campus or whatever it was, and the giraffes are just walking. And you can go up and you can talk to her, and there's a very short conversation. And then the music's playing, and it's just absolutely beautiful music.
Yeah.
And you have to end that scene. It was one of the hardest things, like the third time through, like seriously, you can sit there and it will just go on. And eventually you have to walk up and open the door. I felt guilty walking up and opening the door because she was just happy. She was content and she was enjoying the beauty and the fact that they made you end that. They made you could just sit there. I sat there 15 minutes and just listening to the music and just, I wonder what she'll move, and she just sits there, and it's just like, somebody's got to be the adult. Somebody's got to move the story along.
It's the contentment there, and you get this huge break right there.
Yeah.
I feel like what a breath of fresh air, and
It
entirely
is.
unexpected. It may as well have been a fucking flying shark, because I did not expect a giraffe. It may as well have been a mythological creature.
But
I just didn't expect a giraffe or that scene at all.
It is just like you said. That is like That is them giving you your final break, because once you move forward from there, it is the end of the journey, so to speak, and that
and things
you got to make it through and you got to go through your final fight to end up, finally end up getting to the Fireflies, to their camp.
So this is what I wanted to talk about just real briefly. Are the Fireflies good guys or bad guys? Did they start this whole fucking thing? Like, what was the deal with the Fireflies?
Basically, I kind of question that going into my last playthrough as well, is because they talk about them, and you don't, unless you go through and you read a lot of the extra papers and everything. But what it was is the government set up safe houses, safe areas, and they were running everything. The Fireflies were people who didn't, basically, the way I got it, they were like rebels. They
Right.
didn't want to have to they wanted to be able to go out and live where they wanted, where the government was corralling people into these safe areas.
They're anarchists
And
in a way.
they were, there were things that there were reports that the government was hiding food, and there were times there were no you'd line up for rations, and you get there, and there was a scene at the beginning where they told you there were no rations, and then some guy started complaining and they shot him.
Oh yeah, that's
so
right.
it was just like they were the freedom fighters. They didn't want Big Brother running, even though,
But they caused a huge mess in the end, didn't they? So wouldn't you? They're in the gray area then, because how do you?
Yeah,
how do
they're
you
more
put-
in the gray area.
Yeah, it's just like
You can't put them on a good or bad. They're kind of
They were out, the government basically, from what I got, it took the stance that there is no cure. We're just going to try and survive in
containment.
Yes.
Yeah, it is kind of like they disturb people's lives and they don't care who gets in the way, but ultimately they are trying to benefit human society again.
So, and the thought is, if we let all these people free, if we try to get these people free, that society will reset itself somehow.
Maybe, but they're also, keep in mind that they're kind of the whole point, and like they're one of the only ones that are actually still trying to find a cure.
But in the end, aren't you fighting them?
Because of the decision that you make, yeah.
So, yeah, decision that you make. So in the end, you're fighting,
which is what we're getting to.
In the end, you're fighting on all fronts. You're fighting a
Right.
thing you can't see, a thing that's taken over people, and you're fighting a government, and you're fighting the Firefly. You have no friends in this
you
world.
look at it and
infected.
Yeah,
there
the
are,
infected.
for my first thought is, if something happens, I want the government to protect me. But then there's always that segment of society that, right or wrong, believes the government has too much control.
And they can't protect you in the end.
Yeah, and that's what the Fireflies are. They're like, we'd rather fend for ourselves than have somebody tell us when we can eat, what we can eat, where we have to live. They want, what I mean? So there's that constant fight of Big Brother. Do they have too much power over us?
And that's really interesting, because you could totally delve in on that side
yeah.
and be like, all right, who would be on whose side?
Yeah.
Right.
In that situation, you don't fucking know, because we're not in that situation.
There
But
is
right
no,
now,
there is
right
no
off the
necessarily
bat,
right or wrong.
yeah, right off the bat, right now, I would say that I would not want to be in that controlled environment. And right off the bat, I have no goddamn idea, because it hasn't happened. And if I'm in that situation, maybe shit's a little different.
I'm the opposite. I would want to be in that controlled environment where people are where I would feel safe and protected. But again, I'm not there.
Yeah.
So,
and you spoke about, again, fending for yourself, using firearms, stuff like that. I think it's just what you're used to, or what you think you're capable of, but you have no goddamn idea. Again, Joel, totally normal dude by all rights. He was hammering nails 8 minutes ago.
Yeah.
And now he's shooting people's heads off. So shit changes, man. Shit changes people too. I mean, put you in a situation where you have to defend your family. I guarantee you, I wouldn't want to be that guy.
Yeah.
So, but in the end, you're fighting these Fireflies because of what specific decision have you made, Josh?
Well, there's two. I guess in either of those scenarios, you have to make your way to the Fireflies. Ellie ends up getting turned over to her, and
Real uncomfortable moment.
they end up telling Joel that in order to try to create and extract a cure, that what they need from Ellie is in her brain, and she will die in the process of the surgery. And, Joel maybe thought that he was ready and equipped to deal with that, but makes a decision that she has now given him his every reason to live.
Now, doesn't she, now set the scene up for us, if you would, Jeff, doesn't she almost agree to this process?
That's one of the big questions I had going in, through is, did she know? Did they know? Because
I feel like they gave you that. They played it off well enough to
I think they knew
like
there
she was expecting it.
Yeah, that they knew it could potentially be bad, because when you walked into the first place you thought you were going to run to the Fireflies, there were all kinds of reports you can read, and there were all kinds of x-rays that showed the infection going into the brain. And so I don't know what they knew, but you kind of you knew going in that I think she had a feeling things were going to turn out.
She had to assume that it wouldn't be as simple as like they were
Draw
going to
some
need
blood.
to take a blood sample,
But that's-
because anybody could have done that in the beginning of the game.
But that's what I thought. So when I got there, again, setting the scene, she's now being told, or you're being told, that they need everything she's got. Basically.
Yeah, right before you go in, you're crossing the water again, and there's an accident, and Ellie falls in the water, and you save her. You fall in the water. Ellie again saves you. You turn around, save her, pull her out of the water, and you're doing CPR, and a guard comes up and he points his gun at you, and he's hands in the air. And Joel looks at him and said, "She's dying." He's performing CPR, and the guy's like, "Put your hands in the air," and then ends up hitting Joel with the gun.
This old song and dance.
And then you wake up, as Joel in the emergency room, and you're like, "Where's Ellie?" And they're like, "She's safe. She's alive." And they're like, "Well, where's she?" They're prepping her for surgery. So you don't even get a chance to say goodbye. You don't know what's going on. And then you're talking to Marlene, and Marlene, who gave you her in the first place, it tells you that that she's not going to make it through the surgery. And Joel
damn.
just snaps. He's just like, "No, that's not acceptable." So I don't think he knew. I either that, or just the emotion of it all finally wore on him. But yeah, he just snapped, and he's, more. They tell she gives an order to escort him from the base, and says if he tries anything, kill him.
Which is incredible, because up to this point they're relying on Joel to bring Ellie there, and now, hey, the messenger, you're all set, buddy.
So
Make a move.
knowing the weight of that decision on either side that you could go, would you make the same call?
It's what else I really like about it is,
Josh, that's a hard question.
This lady is I'm drawing a blank.
Marlene.
When you're going through trying to find Ellie in the hospital, you come across a couple recordings, and to me there's a recording she leaves to Ellie's mom.
Ellie's mom. Yeah.
That was really touching. That she's like I know I promised you that I would take care of her, and I've taken care of her as long as I can. But she could potentially be our savior, and she comes out and says it's the hardest thing I've ever had to do.
Yeah.
Because I promised you I'd save her, my best friend's daughter, and now I've got to kill her to try and. But she's like, it's what's best for the human race. And then she makes a comment that I should have killed Joel, but I couldn't kill the one person other than myself who knows how heavy a decision this was.
Damn.
And that was just like, she knew by not killing Joel, it was a mistake to not kill him, but she couldn't do it because it's the one other person on this earth that loved Ellie as much as she did.
That's crazy. And Marlene's carrying that weight around too.
Yes.
Damn.
You didn't answer the question. Sorry.
I mean, I remember the first time I played it.
More than likely, what would you lean towards?
What would I lean? Could I tell somebody to kill my daughter, or what felt like a daughter figure, to save humanity?
Yes.
No. I would sacrifice myself for
But you're
humanity.
not on the table.
I could not.
That's kind of the hypocritical part of it, isn't
Yes.
it? Is that I kind of felt like the same way. It was like, yeah, I would probably make that decision too. I would probably absolutely save Ellie, a person that meant that much to me and was essentially my reason to live, but I would be willing to sacrifice myself.
You wouldn't.
But you're worthless. I'm sorry. I
Yeah.
don't mean that
No,
on a personal level.
No, I get
you
that.
worthless son of a bitch.
I get that.
Yeah.
I'm saying if roles were reversed.
Oh, that you. But didn't
Let's say-
Ellie? But wasn't Ellie a willing participant?
She,
Yeah.
she was.
So
she
then
was.
then isn't it?
And I absolutely read into that and play into that part of the game that she was absolutely 100% committed, knowing that
She knew.
there might be some reason that she might not come out of that alive.
I was gonna say, given the opportunity, I'd ask the kid what they wanted to do.
Well, and that's the thing. She said
She kinda
would
said.
do it.
Joel's I mean, he made a very
Right.
selfish decision there. He
did.
made a
But-
very selfish decision, but I've never been through this decision. As
Right.
somebody who's had to make a decision to remove a body part to save my life, I tell you what, that decision was a lot easier, me making it about myself,
Oh, of course.
than it was for my parents, my brothers, my friends around me.
Mm-hmm.
It's a very emotional thing, but that decision for myself, to me, it was easy.
Yeah.
But my parents having to watch their son lose his arm,
Yeah.
my brothers having to watch their older brother, their hero, lose his arm
Yeah.
to save his life. I was so young and naive and stupid. I never crossed my mind that I was going to die, even though I was suffering through cancer and had to remove a body part to go through that. I could not imagine what my parents went through. I couldn't imagine going through that with my kids right now.
Right.
And it's so much easier when it's yourself. It's so much easier when it's yourself. I couldn't imagine. I would do what Joel did.
Yeah.
Sure.
I maybe it's wrong of me. I just
Well, let's make it easier.
It's not
let's,
an easy-
Let's
it's
make
not
it's
an
one
easy
of those things
decision.
too. Is they never came out and said it was a guarantee.
Right.
That's also true. But let's make it.
They said they hoped.
They pretty much said she's not gonna make it.
No,
that it would work.
There was no guarantee of a cure.
Oh, right.
But let's make this a little bit easier. So there are things we don't know.
Before we make it easier, what's your answer?
What? This is what I'm gonna.
No. You don't get to make it easier for yourself.
No. I'm gonna make it easier for everybody.
No, you
right
got to
now.
answer your question.
answer-
first, and
answer it.
then
Son
make
of a
it easier.
bitch. Okay. Again. Okay. I don't know because it would depend on the thing I'm gonna say.
He'd go in.
So-
He'd go in and do it himself.
Nobody's gonna walk up and tell me, "Hey, listen."
You're given the same deal as Joel is given. Do you do the same thing?
I ask these specific questions
You don't
before
get
I
to-
say yes.
You don't get to ask though.
What do you mean I don't get to ask?
You're put under
Okay.
gunpoint.
What do I intuitively know
You're
then?
put under gunpoint, just like Joel was, to either walk out of that building and let that surgery happen, or to fight and go save her.
You can't do that. Joel has knowledge I don't have, and that's what I'm gonna
Okay,
ask.
go
Okay,
ahead.
then you're
Go ahead.
trying to cheat, but go ahead.
I'm not cheating. Joel already knows the answer to these.
See, we didn't get these choices though.
We didn't because we didn't know what Joel knew.
All right, fire
here's
away, fire
what
away.
Joel knew was how many people are actually fucking left on the planet. First of all,
Oh,
secondly,
you're gonna put a value on it?
a value on a human life. Absolutely,
I mean, a number.
on a single human life.
Only 200? Forget it.
Well, this is the thing. Only 200, and the fungus is eventually going to work its way out to nothingness.
Okay,
Then
but-
I don't make the sacrifice play.
But hang on, can I jump in real quick?
You can jump all over it.
Even if it's only 700 people, let's say there's only 700 people left on the planet, you're still talking saving the future of the entire human race.
But that's not to say that that's true, because Joel may have made the intuitive decision, which is either people will find pockets to survive until this thing is over with, and Ellie doesn't have to make the ultimate sacrifice.
What is? It's been 20 years and it's only getting worse. How's
it getting worse?
How are you gonna wait for like that breeze to blow over? It's not going to.
There's 7 billion people on this planet. Okay, you're not going to kill them all with your pistol and a bow and arrow. I understand that, but if you have surviving pockets of humanity, the disease itself can only hold the host while it can get food and live and survive. Eventually, it dies.
The host is becoming a plant. It doesn't need food, and it lives like a plant now. So you saw that entire world was overgrown in plants.
Yeah.
That host wasn't going
Okay,
anywhere.
well,
So
all
you're
right.
saying that that whatever's in her brain, the cure, is not really a cure. It's a inoculation of sorts.
we don't know. They don't know that they never came out and said that what was in her brain was going to find a cure. There was a hope for a cure. That was the only hope they had found so
Well,
far.
on a chance, then no, I don't make that play.
Okay, I'm gonna say, just based off really quick your first question, I'm gonna say for me that doesn't matter.
That matters to me absolutely, but I will say this: that if it's not a guarantee, I don't make that play.
Okay. Number 2.
That was it.
Oh. You
Well, you
only
said
had
these
one?
questions, so I
Yeah.
was like, oh,
Well,
there's
no.
a
How
series
many people
coming.
are left, and does it work itself out? He
okay.
answered, "Does it work itself out?" He answered, "He doesn't care how many people are left." Josh doesn't even think about the answer to those questions even.
No, I do. I do.
But you would still make that decision,
But
not
I'm
even
still,
having that
regardless,
information.
yeah, regardless of the number, I'm still taking it at face value of I either save the one person left that I love and has kept me alive,
You're gonna love somebody else.
or I save the future of humanity.
What happens if you go back to town where Tommy is, and you love somebody else? Move on with your life. You solved humanity's problems, and maybe you get a lady in return.
You got another
Maybe you
20
come
years.
back and Marlene's like,
I know you're trying to
"You're
make
my
a
guy."
joke, but
No, seriously, Ellie's an amazing person. You had one duty. It was to get her to the Fireflies, where she knew she was going to do the sacrifice. She was going to be that sacrifice play,
you sound like you're leaning towards.
and you step in her way and you take it away from her.
Let that cure happen is kind of what you're.
Say you take
Hell yeah.
say somebody was just going to take the choice of you wanting to save humanity out of your hands. That's essentially what Joel did.
Let's put this in terms Mike can understand. Star Trek fan, right?
Yeah, of course.
What's the end of Star Trek 2? What's the famous quote?
What is the film?
The needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few.
Sure.
Spock sacrificed himself at the end of the movie to save the ship.
And who wanted to get him out of there?
Do you think Kirk would have sacrificed Spock
No.
to save that ship?
He
I mean,
tried to get him out.
No, I know, but that's the decision here. We said everybody would make that sacrifice of themselves, and I don't know many people that would make that sacrifice of somebody else.
Right, no. I wouldn't. Yeah, correct. However, if Ellie could have done what Ellie wanted to do, she'd have locked Joel out of that room herself.
She would have probably.
Then that really is the hardest part because, I can say that I would stick with that answer, but I do realize that is the most selfish thing that you could probably ever do, and knowing that she absolutely was willing to make that sacrifice, and I would go against those wishes and be that selfish. It's hard, but
I'd love to ask.
That's what makes the end of the game so gut wrenching.
yeah, there is no more powerful emotion than love. So it's hard to say when you're put in that spot, that moment, what you're gonna do.
Yeah, but I would love to ask Joanna this question. I really would love to get her reaction
can.
to it. You want me to call her?
Call her.
Oh my God!
Do it.
Unprecedented. A second time.
I've asked Holly.
Or trying.
Holly couldn't do it.
She wouldn't answer,
It was one of our kids, and we had to make that decision to sacrifice one of our kids to save humanity. Neither of us would do it.
Dang.
Okay, I'm gonna call her right now. You guys can go ahead and chit chat. I'm gonna put the ringer up.
And then I got one more question about the end, and then we can.
I have a question
I could
about
go
that
on
too.
about the end forever.
Oh my God.
She totally sent me to her voicemail.
She saw it too. She pulled the mic. She was like, "Yeah, I'll talk to him later."
Let me see if she'll answer a second time.
Do you do this to her often?
I do every day.
Every day.
Well, keep in mind.
Yeah.
Hello?
There it is.
Hey, how
All
you
right.
doing?
Good, how are you?
I'm doing okay. Hey, you're on air, and we have a we have a question for you.
Okay.
Okay, remember in The Last of Us when Ellie was in the hospital and the doctors wanted to remove a piece of her brain to solve the problem of the fungus and all that business? She understood the sacrifice she was about to make, right? She's the one who said, I have to do this. And Joel fought against her, and basically that's how the game plays out, is that he fights these fireflies essentially to help Ellie escape. So if you were put in this situation where the one person that you really cared about in the entire world had to be sacrificed in order to save humanity, what would you do?
Is this like that movie, the Matthew McConaughey movie too? The same kind of question.
The Matthew McConaughey movie?
Yeah, remember where
Oh, yeah. Interstellar?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, it's similar, but you would have to allow someone to sacrifice themselves, someone you really deeply care about, in order to save humanity. Would you allow that sacrifice to happen, or would you step in?
allow someone else to?
Would you allow the person you care about to sacrifice themselves to save humanity? What?
No.
Why?
Because they're, I mean, it's kind of sounds selfish, but they're more important to me than
Hey, baby Jay.
humanity, I think.
So if baby Joseph was like, "Mom, I gotta do this," he's doing it right now, isn't he? He's doing. Are you sacrificing our son right now?
At this moment.
All right. Well, you go take care of that business. We'll chit chat later.
I'm sorry.
All right. No problem. You take care of my son. Okay. Take care of that boy.
Okay, but as I'm holding him, that's thinking if he had to die for humanity. No way.
Wow.
It's a good.
Okay.
It's a good
It was-
answer. Thank you, Joanna.
It was crazy as you were asking her. I could hear him in the background. I was like, "Oh no,
Yeah.
this is too real."
She was just gonna. Yeah, you guys are gonna make my wife cry, you bastards. All right, Joanna. We'll talk to you later. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, guys.
All right,
Bye.
thanks. Bye. So there you have it. Joanna would totally not make the sacrifice. Well, I know. At least I know that she cares about. Hopefully she cares about me like that. Shit.
Probably not.
Yeah, let's be honest. After the baby's born, somebody can sling me up on a cross. You wouldn't even worry about it.
Wait, Michael's got to do what? All right.
So let's talk about this ending.
Yeah, listen. Why don't we start with the last words of the game?
Okay.
Fuck off, slut.
Well, that certainly
Wow.
didn't happen.
That wasn't it.
That certainly didn't happen. And if it did, I don't have that version.
That stung me.
You're a stingy bastard.
Would you guys? I guess it's almost if you made that call, if you made the same call that Joel did.
Set the scene. Set
Okay.
the
Set
the
up
end.
the scene. All right. Well, so Joel makes a decision to fight through the fireflies. Hey, by the way, just really, really quick, when you guys went into that operating room, did you kill all of the doctors?
You know,
I did not.
the first time I did not. I attempted to not kill anybody because in my mind
It wasn't
those
their
were
fault.
doctors. They they weren't fighting me, but that one doctor just wouldn't move,
You had to take him out,
and you had to kill him.
Yeah.
And then I went around and I looked at each of the other doctors,
Yeah.
Frightened as shit.
and I had the gun and I drew it on them, and they were screaming, "Don't shoot!"
Right.
And I in any of my 3 playthroughs, I never killed any of the extra doctors, and all 3 of my playthroughs, I attempted to not kill the first doctor.
I did not touch them my first playthrough, or my second playthrough. Third playthrough, I brought out the flamethrower.
Josh went around plugging bitches with fire.
I brought out the flamethrower.
You're like, I reserve this for boomers, but this room needs a clearing. You
I
know.
was like, you know what? I've had enough. This is my Ellie. We're taking care of business.
I left them alone because for that very reason that they were totally innocent. Because once you have to understand when someone believes something, they've bought into it, and it's their belief that this person is going. They're not malicious in any way. They're not trying to kill Ellie. They don't want to kill her. They're trying. The first doctor that you're fighting essentially believes in the cause so much,
And he
that
threatens you. He holds out a scalpel.
Yeah.
And he's like, "Don't move, or I'm gonna."
Yeah, exactly. So again, the only malicious intent is you can't do this. This person is going to save humanity, and I'm going to defend this cause. They're
Right.
What do they call it? Diametrically opposed. They're on the complete other side of the fence, equal to your fervor to save
On
her.
that same point, when you're you pick Ellie up and you run out of the hospital, and Marlene stops you,
Oh yeah.
and she puts her gun down, and he shoots her, and then he walks away, and he loads Ellie in the Jeep or the car or whatever it was, and he comes back. He could have got away. I mean, and he's like, "You're just gonna come for her." He just puts a bullet right in your head.
It's incredible. That
And it is, but it's the same point. It's
true.
it's weird. They gave you one decision whether or not to kill the doctors,
But you didn't
and
have
then
a
another
choice.
with her. It's just kind. It
Yeah,
was
no
kind
choice.
of weird. But
Really?
yeah, it was.
They were really driving that point home.
And what's odd is Joel knew. Joel knew what Marlene knew in the beginning, that she should have killed Joel.
Yeah.
Joel did not make the mistake
Yes.
Marlene
Oh
made.
yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Joel polished that bitch
That-
off.
that's a very
I
good
don't
point.
mean that
Yeah.
about the person. I mean,
Yeah.
he polished the job. He did the job.
Right.
He just ended her.
Yeah.
He's ensuring Ellie's survival, because if she's if she and some select few are the ones who know about Ellie, they'll never come for her again because they don't exist. You know?
How many times in other media can we talk about where somebody spares somebody and it comes back to haunt them?
Always.
Right.
You know,
Dude, it's based on Greek mythology.
Yeah,
It's that whole bit.
Yeah, and it's just like you said, he knew that he was covering his tracks. He knew what he got himself into. He knew he was going to have to lie to her, and he was doing whatever he had to do to protect her physically, mentally, emotionally. He didn't want to leave anybody alive. Nobody could ever let her know what happened.
Not to bring in Arnold Schwarzenegger because he should be in every conversation, but I'm going to bring him in right now. In the movie Conan the Barbarian, right? Even in the books, he gets his whole village is slayed right in front of him. His mother, his father, everybody, and he's just the enemy. The main enemy is James Earl Jones, and he just kind of looks down at child Arnold, who wasn't even Arnold at all, and he just kind of leaves the kid there, like that's unfinished bit. Dude, that kid's gonna come back for you.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
So, yeah, Joel left nothing to chance. He sealed the deal.
he did.
But that was a crazy scene getting her out of that hospital, though, too.
It was.
What an insane...
None of those emotional scenes where you're like you've got limited control as you're running through, and you're scouring the horizon for the safe point as guys are running at you and shooting.
And you don't know how much time you have at any given point to kill the pursuers.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you have no idea.
I don't think at that point can you fight because you've got her in both hands. I don't think you can fight.
You can
in that
run.
scene.
You can
Yeah.
run, and that's it. And I'm kind of thinking of like the other side of it because by that time I was completely bought in too. I was kind of like, no, let's get Ellie. Let's get the hell out of here. This is what we got to do. But I'm just kind of wondering if anyone was like fighting that internally at that point, going, no, this is what an asshole. I didn't want to make this decision.
I don't think so. I think the story set you up for that, and I think
Right.
I think if a story is well done, it'll make you believe that, and it'll make you follow that path anyway.
Even if you didn't believe it,
Yeah.
Joel's character was so adamant you're going to play through that scene. You
Like
know
a
what I mean?
movie,
Yeah,
you're
yeah.
part of the story at that, but you have no control over the story.
Yeah.
They didn't let you have control, and you know what? They gave you control in very finite areas, and you had to make a choice in some places. And when you get to the pivotal moment, the climax of the story, no way they're going to let you have control of that.
No.
I just
Which-
it would be neat, I think, maybe to have a game that does that, where the pivotal moment, something everyone gets to choose this thing, but
It would
this
it
wasn't
would be really cool to do that actually going into a sequel too.
Oh man,
That
and
would that would be pretty cool.
that's the other
To
thing.
have your decision make that impact going into the next story.
Well, that's the other thing on the list here is
But-
sequel.
I think Josh had one last question.
Well,
correct?
we were actually going to talk about the ending, right?
Oh yeah. So because
Well,
I had a
you
question
let
on
us
that.
you let us up into it really well. Yeah,
Okay.
Joel.
So- Joel shoots Marlene. They escape, and basically he decide she wakes up in the car, and they're driving. And Ellie asks Joel what happened, and he tells her that you weren't that special. There's been dozens of people like you before. There's no cure. It was all a lie.
They stopped looking for.
They
a
stopped
cure.
looking for a cure. Yeah, we're going back to Tommy. We're going back to the dam.
just fucking lies to her flat out.
And just flat out lies, and she realizes that that it was all for naught.
That she was still in her operating gown, and
Yeah.
they were making haste
Yeah,
to get
and,
away.
and she has this feeling that something's wrong, and she rolls over and kind of ignores him and just cries, whatever, just that emotional, like, what's going on. So she thinks about it, and then eventually you stop and you're outside of the dam. You can see it off in the distance, and you're trekking through. I think at the end you're playing as Ellie, right? And you're following Joel through the woods.
Yeah, you're following Joel and just kind of listening to him. He actually starts talking about his daughter again, saying,
Yeah.
"I think you two would have been great friends."
And so it kind of ties everything back together. And then as you near the dam and Joel climbs up, Ellie stops him. And I can't remember. There's a little bit of conversation, and the key moment is, go ahead.
I can actually bring up a line that just freaking tears at me too. Is when she's explaining to him, how and why she feels, the way that she does is she explains to him, the story of when she got bit, when she was in the mall, like with her friend Riley. And she says that to him, just like, her name was Riley and she was the first to die. Like, dude, that line like hits me hard. Like every time she says that, and
it's kind of a bonding moment where she explains to Joel that he's not the only one to lose somebody close to him.
Right.
One last another bonding moment between them. But she looks up at him after that, and she's just says something along the lines of, "I got one last question, and then I'll let it go. Did everything happen exactly the way you said it happened?"
Right.
And Joel just looks her cold, dead in the eye, and says,
"I swear."
"I swear."
Fucked up.
And that, to me, that was, as a parent, as a caregiver, that was the most touching moment of the game. Because while we all say you're never going to lie to your kids, you want it to be truthful, the most selfish thing he could have done at that point was tell her the truth. The most selfish thing I think he could ever do is to tell her the truth. Because at that point, he's taken that burden on himself. And the only reason he would ever tell her is because he couldn't hold that burden anymore. And he's going to put that burden back on her. Because if he ever tells her that, she's going to snap.
Well, she'd experience the same thing over again.
And he would lose her.
Well, he would lose her, but at that point, the guilt she would have, the guilt, even though it wasn't her decision, even though she had nothing to do with it, the guilt she would have knowing that she could have saved.
That's a strong part of that conversation. When she's talking about her friend Riley, and she was the first to die, and he kind of cuts her off and says like, well, look. He does that thing again with the watch. He touches his watch because he is wearing it at the end. Where he touches the watch and he says, "I struggled for a long time with surviving," and that's when he gives her that line of like, no matter what, you have to keep finding something to fight for. And yeah, I was gonna ask you guys too. And I love the pause when she tells him, swear to me that everything you says is true, and he doesn't really break. He stares right at her and says, "I swear." And it just focuses on her face, and she has those like wandering eyes where she's kind of looking around for a few seconds, and there's like water building up, and she just says, "Okay." And I love that it cuts to black, and you get that music. That song that plays is perfect. But so you're saying again that was the right, going through and making that decision. That was the right thing.
That was the only decision. Once he did that, it's the only decision
to go through and keep the lie.
You have to.
One thing though, with the expert mocap, the facial expressions, and everything else, I believe she knew he was lying.
Oh, I agree.
Absolutely.
Oh, yeah.
I think she intuitively knew Joel was lying,
Yeah.
and she bought his story because it brought comfort that she's with Joel, and this was what would have culminated in the perfect moment.
I think it's that pause and those wandering eyes that sell it, because otherwise she would just kind of been like, okay, but she just kind of looks.
She's like
she looks torn. She looks torn.
Yeah, like, okay, I'll trust you.
Right.
She gives him the ultimate trust, and she knows he's lying. At least to me, I don't know. Was that actually a thing? Was it their intent was that she knew he was lying?
I believe so, and I don't know that they've ever come out and explained anything. I don't know that they need to, but I believe the consensus of the gaming community is that
Is that she knew.
She understood.
I think she will always have her doubts.
Yeah.
Oh, maybe it was enough to plant the seed. Maybe her looking him in the face and having known him for so. When you go through shit with somebody, though, just to put it lightly, when you go through problems or darkness or whatever with another person, they tend to know you a lot deeper than other people. And then when you lie, they know it. It's like they could see,
Yeah.
So I feel like she knew at that moment, and when she says okay, I don't just get the okay, I believe you. I get the okay, I'll believe it. It's not that I'll believe you because you're telling the truth. It's okay, I choose to believe your version of the story.
Yeah.
So
It's fair. That's a good way to put it. Yeah.
yeah, but she again, it was perfectly played. The voice acting, spot on. Again,
I can't think of a game that did it even close.
No.
not even
Even
close.
close.
No, yeah, the voice acting from this game really, on top of like the narration and the gameplay and all the elements of it, the scenery.
Sean was about to mention Leisure Suit Larry, but I'm telling you, Sean, it's not even close.
It's neck and neck. I'm
It
sorry.
was it was topped off by absolutely perfect casting.
Yeah. So by the way, who was Ellie? Because her voice sounds really familiar.
Ellie was Ashley Johnson. She's
the hell is
actually
that?
she's actually well, you can IMDb her, but she's actually like a normal. Don't look at me like that. she's
That should
actually
be
like she's
abnormal.
actually a normal. Have you ever seen that Mel Gibson movie, What Women Want?
Yeah.
She was Mel Gibson's daughter in that movie.
I can't remember. Her
This
face.
was like the
Remember
first.
the Avengers?
Yeah.
The scene that Captain America
Oh, yeah,
saves
yeah.
the waitress.
Yeah.
And at the end, she's thanking Captain America.
No.
No.
Can you give me something more recent?
But this was actually the
That's
first.
like the most recent.
I know.
This was actually the first video game that she did.
Her voice sounded like, what's her name, from Juno.
Ellen Page.
Ellen
She
Page.
looked
I've
like
heard a lot
Ellen
of people.
Page.
I've
She
heard a lot of
looked like
people
Ellen
make that
Page.
comparison. Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is what confused me about his daughter in the beginning. Was like, I was like, how is she gonna have dark hair all of a sudden? Oh wait, it's a different person. So, but no, yeah, she looked like Ellen Page, and she sounds like Ellen Page. Who played Joel? Who was Joel?
Troy Baker.
That name sounds more familiar.
He's done a lot of game stuff.
Troy Baker was the Batman in the Batman series, right? And wasn't he in?
No.
Was he the?
He did in when Mark Hamill stopped doing the Joker in
Okay.
Arkham Origins. He did the Joker in that.
He was Nathan Drake.
See again, I'm
No.
No, that was
no.
Nathan North,
That's
wasn't it?
Nolan North.
Nolan
Nolan
North,
North.
who was
Nolan-
actually Nolan North was the
David.
David.
Peter North.
Squirrely guy. Yeah.
Peter North.
No.
Was Troy Baker Troy Baker was the guy from BioShock Infinite, right? I know he's done a lot of big
Yes.
stuff
Yes.
lately.
Yes, he did BioShock Infinite. He was Snow in Final Fantasy 13.
Yeah.
Snow.
I believe he's actually going to be Revolver Ocelot in the new Metal Gear.
What?
Yep.
He's still around?
But I highly recommend you. Oh, you can't. You got rid of your PS4 at some point.
Yeah.
It's probably on YouTube. I highly recommend watching the documentary of it because a lot of it actually
Oh.
deals with the motion cap and the voice acting.
I will watch it.
He was Batman in Arkham City.
See, I heard the name before.
Troy Baker?
Yeah.
I thought so.
And you were right, Batman.
He was not Batman. He was Joker.
Who was Batman?
Rolling the IMDb's.
He's rolling the IMDb's, and then he's gonna smoke them. Josh, what the hell are you eating today, by the way? Or what have you eaten?
A vegan sunshine muffin.
Oh my God, what the hell is that made out of?
I'm not sure.
God.
Oh no, you were right. He was Tim Drake, Robin, Harvey Dent, Two-Face, and Officer Whitman.
Everybody but Batman.
Yeah.
I
But
knew
I-
he was in
and,
Batman.
and Catwoman.
Yeah, it wasn't Catwoman or a Poison Ivy. But yeah, so it was expertly done. And again, like Jeff said, nothing even comes close to it. Soundtrack.
I was gonna say two, at least definitely two more strong things that I want to talk about because, as much as I loved it, you even brought it up a couple of times too. How much the music and the soundtrack that was written played perfectly with so many of those moments.
Music is power, man.
Yeah,
And it's like
absolutely.
it's something that talks to you without language.
I love that country song. I've never heard it before. I don't know if it was for the game or it's from when Joel and Ellie are in the car going into Pittsburgh and
Oh,
they get
yeah.
ambushed.
I actually don't know. Yeah, I'm not sure.
I love that song.
It's because it's tied to that moment.
Yeah, it's
That's
tied to the
why.
moment, and because before the game came out, they played that trailer.
With
That
that
was
song
the
playing.
theme, and it was on it. Oh, and it fits it so perfect, and it's I like it, and I listen to it all the time at work. So
That's
it's
awesome.
just one of those. But yes, it just ties to the moment, and it's just it ties in perfectly.
Yeah, it does.
And then-
I don't. Yeah.
I was going to say the music when with the giraffe scene we talked about earlier, how just it
Just
set the
that calm-
calmness of
that-
that scene, and Josh touched on the final song as the credits roll right at the end. It was it was fabulous.
How about right in the beginning? How about the loading screen? I'm just the screen
Just
where you pick what you're gonna do.
Yeah, just sitting on the title screen
I'm like,
and just watching
wow.
the
leaves blow around
The
in the
spores.
wind.
the wind just kind of gently blow like the drapes around.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's outstanding. So I would say a game like this is rare, and that's why we dedicate an entire episode to it. It's just one of those rare games that played out again like a film, and just to bring the road back into it. I think if you have a chance, and that's something you'd love to sit down and watch too. Have you guys Did I ask you if you
I've watched
it?
yeah, I didn't read the book, but I have watched the film.
Did you see it?
I've not seen it. Is that is it an older one?
Viggo Mortensen. It's like 4 or 5 years old.
Yeah, it's
No,
not terribly old.
I don't think I've heard of it. No, I'll have to check it out, and I would love to read. I'm always looking for new authors, so I will definitely check out the book.
Oh man, and the again something in the theater of the mind that's different because I watched the movie first and then read the book afterwards. I felt like I should have obviously done it the other way around, but I wouldn't have been interested. I didn't even know about it if I didn't watch that film. But that power is there too. That power for human to survive, to want to fight for the survival of their, first of all, themselves, but of their race too. You had on the one hand fireflies who are trying to push for human survival, and on the other hand you have people who just wanted to survive together. So it's a human story. It's an awesome story. Is there any place where you would rank this video game in your top 5? Would it be
Yes.
in there?
Oh, by far, yeah,
Yeah.
easily probably top 3.
Top 3.
If not top, it's definitely the top of the last 2 generations. Everybody
Yeah,
always
if we
holds.
say modern gaming, let's say
Yeah,
modern gaming.
Modern
because
gaming is
people are
by
gonna pick-
far number 1.
Yeah,
by
I mean-
far.
Yeah,
I
Sean,
don't remember the last game I played through multiple times, and I've played through this game 3 times
Yeah.
in the last 18
Year.
months.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
By the way, if I can, before I forget to actually bring it up, did you play through the downloadable content, the add-on content that they did?
No, which was a question I had. I didn't even touch it.
Do you want me to just kind of go through and spoil that real quick?
Just go ahead and urinate on it.
The content actually tells the story. It's actually split, okay? So you get 2 stories in it. You get past story with, it goes through the entire story from Ellie being in like her military school and being with her friend Riley.
Wow.
Going through that when they kind of break out of like the school and they go to the mall, and it goes through leading up to that whole point to where they get bit
Oh, no way.
and their friend Riley dies. You live through that whole moment. And the other current, you play through a current time. You play through winter.
Present day.
You get the story told of how Ellie saved Joel, of how she got him from that campus
To
the
shed or
house,
whatever.
to the house, and how and everything that she went through trying to make sure that he got hid and he was safe and all of that.
So that brings up an interesting question. Have they played Joel and Ellie out? What are they doing with the sequel? Does it have to do with the current timeline or the storyline or what?
Yeah, I think we're getting a sequel. I think we're gonna have to. It's too big of a series now at this point to ignore it.
Did they already said they want to do it, but they're working on something else?
Right. They're kind of they claim they're putting it on the back burner to focus on Uncharted 4.
Which is a good, by the way,
It's
I
a good
support-
decision.
I support this decision.
Yes.
Yeah.
First of all, I want to kick ass Uncharted because that's what Uncharted is, but I probably won't even be able to play it.
I enjoyed the Uncharted games, but the story in those games don't come close to touching the story in this. You know.
No, it's a whole different style too.
Yeah.
I've played like survival horror, like Dead Space and stuff like that. Didn't touch this story.
No.
Yeah.
This story was a human story, which is again what I brought up in the very beginning was. At the end, it didn't matter where the spores came from or the fact that they were trying to save humanity or any of that. It
Yeah,
came down
this-
to Ellie and Joel and Joel's love for this individual like he had for his own daughter in a way.
This was a story that surrounded them, but was ultimately the story of Joel and Ellie.
Yeah, it could have been called Joel and Ellie
And
of us.
as much as we've all kind of sat around and said like this wraps it up. I don't want any more. You can't really do much more with this. At the same time, knowing we're going to get a sequel at some point, I don't want to play another Last of Us without Joel and Ellie.
Yeah, that's why it's gonna be really interesting. Like, what position are they gonna? And that's good. Take your time, because I would have to sit down for months to try to figure out what story would even approach something like this for a second round.
Well, I mean, you could have. Well, I mean,
What if they just play Ellie when Ellie's older and she takes on this whole other persona?
It could be. It
She
could be something like
lead
that.
a revolution against the spores.
I mean, what if they play it as close to the ending of the first one as possible, and maybe by the end of the second one, her sacrifice comes to fruition.
But that's what the crazy part is. Joel sealed the deal. So you
Not
kind of
everyone is gone though. The leader was
everyone
killed.
who knew that Ellie had the cure though.
The doctors are still there. The fireflies are still there. You didn't kill everybody
But did
running
they know
out.
about
Yeah.
Ellie?
I love the vague
Probably.
ending.
There can't be no documentation of it either. I
Yeah.
mean,
But it's a
And there's other people, survivors, that know their story now too.
So you think they're just gonna come after them in that camp, or could be
I hope they
anything?
let it go. If they're going to follow it up, I'd prefer to see some sort of a prequel, whether you see Joel and his brothers falling out, something along those lines. I like the vagueness of the ending. I
I do
like
too.
the finality of the ending.
The problem with that story though is that you don't get Ellie.
Yeah, no, I agree. But I mean, you can build other
Sean can do
relationships. I
without.
mean, honestly, if the relationship in the falling out of a relationship between a brother and the two brothers could be just as emotional. I mean, if they go into the point that his brother was his crutch before he met Tess, and then the brother bails on him to go join the Fireflies.
It could
Well,
be,
that's the other
but
thing,
since we've already been given the aftermath, and that all it plays out is just kind of like there's a hug, and he's like, "This is my brother," and they're kind of like back to normal.
Well, we're neglecting the entire part where we didn't play anything to do with Tommy. I mean,
Right.
We didn't. What if Tommy's the next game? You know what I'm saying? What if that journey to get to be in a camp building
What
this
if
thing?
what if Tommy is more of the
Firefly variety?
What if he's more of the What if he's more of the antagonist and just kind of like Joel? I can't believe you made this decision, and he turns against.
Right? Maybe. I don't know. But crazy to think about a sequel to something like this. I think like you said, I would just leave Joel and Ellie done. Make
hey,
that
Joel,
story
you like
finish.
making decisions for everyone else, Coke or Pepsi? Just being a dick the
That's
entire
true.
game.
Because how much does Tommy actually know? So
I think that Tommy.
I feel like
Tommy
Marlene
actually-
would have told him that,
Tommy
hey,
actually
Ellie's
knows
our only hope, and then now they're back at the camp.
Tommy does have the ties to the Fireflies, so that does make sense. If Joel shows back up to the camp and tells everybody that he was lying, or that he continues that lie and tells them all there was no
Actual cure.
there's no
or
was
whatever.
cure, this, that, and the other thing, and then Tommy and his just dealings runs into other Fireflies and find out exactly what happened. I mean, that could be an evolved story. I don't know that I want to see it because I don't know that it can be as good. But my
I
fear
don't-
would be it wouldn't be as good.
I don't know that it could be as good, but seeing as how they made the first one so incredible, right now I'm gonna put my trust in them.
Joanna had mentioned the Fireflies chasing them down when the game ended, and I kind of squashed that right away. I said, well, why, their resources are so limited. If Joel and Ellie find a way to get out of there and find a place, they'll never find them. The resources are so limited, and then the chances of Joel and Ellie surviving are very slim. You know what I'm saying? Not even from the spores, from that cannibals, from the whole world's gone awry.
Well, if they made it back to the dam. We know that. And last we
Yeah.
saw the dam, they found power. They had talked about they had built an electric fence. So that was the start of potentially new civilization.
But they're now in the nest of enemies in a sense, because if Tommy knows.
Well, and that's where the next sword could kick in. Is just in random dealings, Tommy having those Firefly connection. That could be how they stumble across Joel and Ellie. Because without that connection,
there'd be nothing.
in a United States, a country as big as the U.S. with such limited communication,
'em.
they would never find
Never
them. But
find
the fact that dam is starting up and they might start attracting people, and then other Fireflies just happen to be passing through, and with their connection to Tommy, stop by for like say a restock of supplies or something like that.
And they see Joel and Ellie, and they're like, "We got stories about you."
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or I mean,
that's
or
true.
it could be more of going against the government, like, this time too, and that maybe we just get kind of like a slight catch up on like a 4 or 5 years later kind of thing, and instead of being like the Fireflies want this girl and they want looking for a cure, it could be the government, and
I think you could
a
do
whole
that.
new story kind of rolls out from there.
I think you could do that, and I think you could take Ellie and have her grown up, because she's the spores don't even screw with her,
Right.
and have Joel die in some tragic way,
It's possible.
and start a game off that way. So
What if they did it before, like before the whole Joel and Ellie saga, like just as the spore epidemic starts?
they could do it
up
in a different
into-
country.
Yeah, up until that point.
Could, but we were supposed to take that starting point as the starting point. So I have no idea. What if it was somewhere else? What if you have a whole different story on the other side of the states?
Right.
Yeah.
You could do that.
We'll see. We'll put trust in them for now.
Okay. Thank you for joining us on another adventure of Tales from the Void podcast with our special guest, Mr. Jeff.
Thank you, guys. Thanks for having me. It was a blast.
Thank you for coming along.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Sean has nothing to say to you.
Nah, I'm good.
I'll say it for
good.
him. I'll take a ham sandwich. No, I'm just kidding. So we've been your illuminating hosts.
I'm Sean.
Hey, I'm Josh.
I'm Mike.
And I'm Jeff.
Again.
We'd like to give a shout out to our Pittsburgh brethren in NetWaves, the One Up Cup. Find them on Facebook, Twitter, and their blog at oneup-cup.com. Chris Johnston, I want to have your baby.
Love you, Chris.
Sean also wants to have your baby. He's just not saying it right now. Also, remember to visit our sponsors. We're brought to you by Detroit Grooming Company. For all your gentlemanly needs, place your order at DetroitGrooming.com because that website is pretty damn sweet, if I may say so myself. Yeah. Anyway, find them on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Detroit Grooming, and Cellar Door Soap and Skin, where Brandon keep your butt clean. Find them everywhere. Facebook, Twitter, Instagram at Cellar Door Soap and Skin, and their website.
You can use it anywhere you want because soap cleans itself.
Buzzing. CellarDoorSoapandSkin.com. And don't forget to check us out, your Tales from the Void podcast buddies. Find us on Facebook, Twitter.
Baristas?
Yeah, kind of close.
Tales from the Void podcast baristas?
Yeah. Instagram, YouTube, iTunes. It's the same SoundCloud.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're not finding us on the webs,
Starbucks.
you're not looking
Book
for
Barnes
us.
and Noble.
You're not looking
Big
for us.
B.
Big B.
Tim Horton.
We're next door.
Bean and Leaf.
What?
I don't know.
Anyway,
I
thanks
like
for
how you
listening.
asked what at that part.
Thanks for listening, everybody. Good night.